or those seeking to replace them. All so that you can finally, simply, and instantly get the facts. Votesmart.org, because facts matter.
Why should young people care about the spread of coronavirus? Well, we know that people with underlying medical...
Terry, would you like to lead us in a prayer?
Absolutely. Thank you. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for your abundant grace, love, and mercy. Thank you for these men and women that serve as city staff and on the city council. Lord, we ask you to give wisdom, understanding, and knowledge for all the decisions that need to be made tonight and those that need to be tabled for another meeting. Bring unity and cooperation among the members for the common good of our community and its great citizens. Keep each one safe and healthy. It's in your name, Jesus, that we pray. Amen.
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 Thank you. Officially, thank you, Terry. Open the City Council meeting of August 17th. Rachel, would you lead us in a pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Christine, you're on. Thank you. Okay, the first item on the agenda is a public hearing for an ordinance setting the 2020 tax rate. Stephanie?
Good evening. In your packet tonight is the information for the tax rate proposed for fiscal or for calendar year 2020. The tax rate will stay the same as 2019, which is 0.7649 per $100,000 of real estate tax assessment. It will be about total $1.7 million of revenue shared between general fund, library, and parks. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions, but I am requesting tonight the first and final reading. That is because the information needs to be certified in Pam Grove's office by September 1st. So if you have any questions, I would recommend first and second, first and final, please.
Are there any questions for Stephanie? If not, can we have the first reading, please? Oh, that's right. Sorry. I'd like to officially open the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak to council and voice an opinion on the 2020 tax rates?
I'm sorry, I didn't get unmuted in time. Can I say something?
Yes.
No. This is Ann. What warrants a change in the tax rate? We've been at the same rate for 3 years. I'm not asking for an increase, but I just wondered how that's increased or decreased or whatever.
There's mechanisms that adjust the rate. Stephanie, do you want to?
It's 6:39. Time for news update.
The cat who captured our
How
hearts.
often should you clean your fridge? Stay tuned to find out.
Most buzzed about premieres.
Red Carpet Official with
55-star products you can buy.
Every year, and it's provided by the state of Missouri. So the state of Missouri goes through and gets with the county assessor and collector's information. That information is then used. Most of the time, if the rate is going to increase, it will be increased based on new construction, because that's kind of the formula factor. What you don't have in your packet is like a 13 to 15 page pro forma that I have to fill out and complete for the county. That goes line by line, and that will make any modifications. It bases any information on CPI and any other factors. The city of Rolla does not have personal property taxes, so that is what allows us to kind of maintain the stability in our rates if you look on the first page of the cover sheet.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any citizens that would like to speak to this? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Any other questions by council? First reading, please.
An ordinance fixing the tax levy for general revenue, library, and park by the city of Rolla, Missouri for the year 2020.
Is there a motion to waive the rules and have the final reading?
I'll make a motion. Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? For the three that are online, if you can raise your hand so we know how you're voting. Lister, are you voting or just saying hi? Okay, thank you. Final reading, please.
An ordinance fixing the tax levy for general revenue, library, and park by the city of Rolla, Missouri for the year 2020.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to accept.
Second?
It's a motion by Carolyn, second by Ann.
Yes.
Roll call vote.
Florence. Florence.
Yay.
Crow.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Schott.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Ruder.
Yes.
Ellen.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
Eberly.
Yes.
Lyons.
Yes.
Boland.
Yes.
Mush.
Yes.
12 ayes.
Thank you. Special presentations. We have three very interesting presentations tonight. The first one is about the Sustainable Ozark Partnership. We don't get to see Dorsey that often, so welcome.
Well, good evening, everyone. Mr. Mayor, thank you for your time here this evening, and thank you, council members, for allowing us to come and talk a little bit about the Sustainable Ozark Partnership. We certainly appreciate the great support that the city of Rolla and Phelps County provides to our organization. And so I'd like to start our conversation off this afternoon by attempting to show you a video here of our four-county regional quality of life video that we've prepared. Several folks in the room have seen it. Some have not, so I'll let this play. It's about 6 minutes long, and then talk a little bit afterwards about the video.
Meet endless adventure. Uncover exceptional education opportunities. Chase your professional aspirations. Discover friendly neighbors and high-quality amenities. Find your way home to America's heartland, the Fort Leonard Wood region. The Fort Leonard Wood region is located in south-central Missouri. It covers over 3,000 square miles with almost 168,000 residents. The region offers many diverse opportunities for business expansion, development, and growth. The economy is driven by manufacturing, advanced technology, agriculture, and the defense sectors. Fort Leonard Wood itself contributes $2.1 billion and over 20,000 jobs to Missouri's economy. Highly trained and educated transitioning service members and military spouses provide regional businesses with an experienced and talented workforce pool. The region centers around one of the Army's premier training installations. At Fort Leonard Wood, the Department of Defense trains over 80,000 service members and civilians every year.
Just the community feel, the opportunities that are here, the school system, it's fantastic. It rivals any school system that I've worked for in other communities. I mean, this is just a fantastic place to raise children. It's safe. It's reasonable when you talk about cost of living. So it checks all those boxes.
You know, our school district is diverse. It offers an experience that you can't get anywhere else. We have a multitude of offerings. We have every advanced placement course you'd want to take. We have a high school that offers dual credit. We have elementary schools across the district. Some are large, some are smaller. So really, the greatest thing is you get this rural area, but you also have a school district that competes with school districts anywhere you're going to find in the country in terms of offerings, in terms of opportunities for your students, and our students are successful when they leave our district.
There are over 20 higher education institutions in the region, offering a wide variety of degrees and job certification programs, including the Missouri University of Science and Technology, which is located less than 30 minutes from Fort Leonard Wood and was ranked the 3rd best engineering college in the nation and 2nd ranked engineering program for student veterans by College Factual in 2019.
Missouri S&T and Fort Leonard Wood have had a great relationship over the years. Missouri S&T has been around since 1870. We are primarily focused on the STEM disciplines, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. We also have a very strong liberal arts and humanities. We offer 99 different degrees in 40 different programs of study.
Higher education institutions, along with chambers of commerce and local financial institutions, have created an environment that encourages entrepreneurship and supports small business owners.
To be an entrepreneur in this region takes a lot of partners because you really have to bring a lot of talent in to help you. And it's a little crazy too because there's always something new going on and you're always trying to develop something that doesn't exist. We have the engineering school that's a part of the University of Missouri system. And so MS&T has been critical for us because of the technical skills that they provide. And we have a lot of chemists that work here. And also we have a lot of classes that come through here and do projects with us. And so we utilize all of that here in our business. That's critical for us.
Regional citizens have an abundant number of high-quality healthcare provider and facility options to choose from, including a brand new hospital facility plan for Fort Leonard Wood, all of which ensure our regional citizens are able to live a healthy, vibrant life.
You have everything from, waterways and the outdoor recreation to places like Ozark Actors Theater, where we have, Broadway talent right here in the middle of Missouri. Leach Theater, also a performing arts center. So, there's a wider range of things to do, just depending upon, what your hobbies are.
This is a place where all cultures from our country meet. All of it comes together, and I do believe we have a very unique place with very unique people. Every day is kind of an adventure here.
So thank you for allowing us to show that video. I'll talk a little bit about our organization for those that are not quite familiar with the Sustainable Ozarks Partnership, and it'll kind of help you understand a little bit about how we put that video together and the purpose from which we did it. The Sustainable Ozarks Partnership is an organization that was formed in 2012, and the idea behind it was to formalize regional support for Fort Leonard Wood and all of those factors that we're all interested in that can help the long-term growth and sustainability of Fort Leonard Wood. We all know that the installation has a $2.5 billion economic impact on the state of Missouri, so it's important to our economy and particularly here in the region. So the organization was formed around 4 counties, Phelps, Laclede, Texas, and Pulaski counties. And we all work together, collaborate to do the things that will help Fort Leonard Wood sustain its current missions and help it grow in the future. Our work is guided by a desire to gain positive recognition for the region. You can see there when you look at that regional video that our 4-county region has a lot more to offer than most people realize. And that's important for us to be able to show folks, whether they live here or they're service members or family members or they're Department of Defense officials or other decision makers that think about our region in a certain way. They can look and see that the quality of life here is really something to treasure. And so we felt like that being able to show some of the highlights from the quality of life amenities that exist around the 4 counties was something that was very beneficial to us all. And it can be helpful for economic developers, city and local government leaders. But I can tell you that Fort Leonard Wood, for example, has really embraced this video because they see the exact same thing that we do, that it will have great benefit as they talk to service members and family members about coming out to Fort Leonard Wood and living and working here. So we as an organization have a strategic plan that outlines our mission, our vision, and our goals. And the document that I provided you in your read ahead talks a little bit about some of that. Our mission is to foster the region's continuing commitment to national defense and advocate for local and regional development initiatives, as I mentioned, Fort Leonard Wood sustainment and growth. Our vision is pretty simple. It's regional communities like yourselves and the others that, along with government organizations, Fort Leonard Wood state and federal and neighbors working together as stakeholders to make the region an even better place to work, live, and play. And while we want to continue to see Fort Leonard Wood be successful, we also want the growth that could potentially come along with Fort Leonard Wood. We have 4 strategic goals, and they are gain positive recognition for the region, the 4 counties, and Fort Leonard Wood, strengthen Fort Leonard Wood, strengthen the Fort Leonard Wood region, and ensure that we as an organization can continue to sustain ourselves and do the things that we do. We have quite a few folks here that are in the room tonight and that live in the city of Rolla and Phelps County that are active in a Sustainable Ozarks partnership, so their participation is very much appreciated. And we have a great relationship with the city, and that's very beneficial, as you can see by that video, that many of the quality of life attributes that we highlighted there come from this area. So a lot to be said there for how the city was represented in that video. So that video was one of our accomplishments. We've also worked recently with 4 county regional tourism professionals to pull together a centralized tourism website, so that when the 150,000 or more visitors from around the country that come to Fort Leonard Wood every year for a military-connected graduation have the ability to see what our counties and our cities offer and kind of encourage them to come a little earlier and stay a little longer and experience and enjoy some of the things that make our way of life great out here in the heart of America, if you will. We have advocated for state legislation that has allowed for the full license reciprocity for military spouses. As you can imagine, military spouses, when they move from place to place, having to go through a professional licensing process can sometimes be difficult. And so we have a great talent pool there that we're fortunate enough to the state to kind of be of assistance to us there to support those folks. As you heard there on our video, we have a new hospital planned for Fort Leonard Wood. That the groundbreaking ceremony took place back in late June. And so we are pretty excited that we'll have a new Army hospital on Fort Leonard Wood in the coming years. It's the oldest in the Army's inventory right now. And we know that it will not only improve quality of life and access to care to service members and families, but it can also be a staple for the future of the growth of Fort Leonard Wood. So our congressional delegation, led by Senator Blunt, jumped out and took the lead on that. We have long time advocated for improving health care in that area. And so over the course of this project, we expect that about 700 construction jobs are generated. So it's good for the economy all the way around, but to have a good, a brand new hospital here in the next couple of years on Fort Leonard Wood is a really big deal. We developed a national marketing program to which part of this video is involved in, that will help us advocate for more tourism, to retain service members, to recruit folks to move here to the area, to try to market this as a more military retirement community. And so we hope in doing so we'll also be able to make the case for new businesses to come to the region. We've worked with our airport board. You know that we have an airport, commercial airport on Fort Leonard Wood, which is very unique in itself because there's only 2 of those in the Army's inventory. And so Fort Hood, Texas is the other one. But we have daily commercial jet service from Fort Leonard Wood to St. Louis, which connects to 70 different locations around the country. And so that's pretty important to us as a region because access to Fort Leonard Wood is always perceived as being very difficult. There's the moniker that Fort Leonard Wood has had for a long time is lost in the woods. For many of us, that's an endearing trait. But for most folks, it's viewed in a different way. So the perception about Fort Leonard Wood being hard to get to is something that we wanted to overcome. And a couple of things like our video, we get to point that out. So that jet service is very good. We are currently in the mode of doing what we call a strategic analysis of future opportunities. We have partnered with some very high-profile folks in Washington, D.C. that are helping us examine opportunities to attract new missions, whether they be Department of Defense, non-Department of Defense, or defense industry investments into our 4-county region. So we're pretty happy about where that's headed. We look forward to some great progress there in the coming months and years on that. We recently had an opportunity to partner with the Missouri Partnership Organization, which is an extension of the Department of Economic Development. They're doing a statewide branding and marketing initiative, and they were traveling all around the state getting input for this, and we were fortunate, based on some exposure we had with them, for them to reach out to us and say, we would like to have the Fort Leonard Wood region's input on the state branding and marketing initiative. So we were able to help facilitate 3 listening sessions or focus group sessions that were here, and we had over 50 participants to kind of share our views about the strengths and things of Missouri's brand. And so we look forward to kind of seeing where those results come from. But again, that's another product of our collaboration. And the state is divided up into regions, that aren't necessary to describe the way that we kind of view ourselves. Like with Fort Leonard Wood region, we're trying to promote and facilitate that description of ourselves. And so we were glad that they recognized that and that they're paying closer attention to our input and things of interest to us here. So I have a couple of other things there that you've probably already had a chance to look over, and I think most folks in the room know that I could talk for a long time, and I don't think it's what you want me to do here tonight. But we have had some other successes that I'll just make a mention of real quickly to kind of further illustrate our organization. We have defended basic combat training cuts at Fort Leonard Wood before. The Army was in the middle of cutting some training loads across the Army, and we discovered that they were going to do that disproportionately at Fort Leonard Wood, so we involved ourselves with that, and as members of Congress were able to kind of change that. We have been recognized as a great American defense community, and we also won the Army Community Partnership Award in 2017, where a delegation of us, and there were even some folks from the city of Rolla that went with us to the Pentagon to be given that award by the Secretary of the Army at the time. So I'll stop there with our successes and some of the things that we're involved in. Of course, there are challenges. In the last several years, we lost 1,800 positions at Fort Leonard Wood that had a tremendous economic impact on the area. And those jobs aren't easy to come by in terms of trying to get them back. Well, now that the Army's in strength is essentially going in the other direction, we still experience those losses. And when we add more training and things like that at Fort Leonard Wood, that doesn't necessarily replace those types of losses that we experience. So we are always working to try to pay attention to the opportunities that exist out there, what's important to the Army, because we want to see Fort Leonard Wood and our communities grow together, and we have some strategies behind that. And so it's our pleasure to kind of work on that on behalf of the four-county region, which you all are tremendous supporters of. I do want to make mention of one thing that we're doing this week, actually. Every year we've had an annual meeting for the last 8 years. It's been pretty successful. We usually have about 250 folks that show up. But quite naturally, based on the circumstances we find ourselves in this year, we've committed to doing it virtually. And so it's a lot different holding a meeting in person than it is virtually, especially when you're trying to master the technology of it all. So hopefully on this Thursday, we'll be successful in doing that. Our meeting this year is going to be a little bit more concise than it is typically when we do it in person. But this year we have the following speakers that are confirmed: Senator Roy Blunt, Senator Josh Hawley, Representative Vicki Harper, Governor Mike Parson, and then we have our new Commanding General, General Bonner from Fort Leonard Wood, our Missouri military advocate, Joe Driscoll, and a couple of other consultants from Washington, D.C. So if you'd like to participate in the meeting, it's going to be broadcast over WebEx. You can register for the meeting at our website, which is sustainableozarks.org. So please forgive me if I've talked too much, Mayor, but I would like to just open it up and offer the opportunity to ask any questions anyone may have.
Well, Dorsey, the video is very professionally done and looks terrific. I have 2 questions. The first is Brac still in existence?
There is no authorization for a Brac under current legislation, and it is not in the impending National Defense Authorization Act. So,
okay, because originally it was like every so many years, every 5 years or something. So that's totally been put on the shelf, or it's in the trash can?
It's put on the shelf. It's a year-to-year kind of proposition in our estimation, but we believe that the work that we're doing now will put us in a good position to gain, once again, under Brac. Of course, all things considered, there's always a risk there, but we are trying to be very proactive in the things that we're doing when we're emphasizing regional health care, quality public education, regional transportation access. we want to position ourselves that so when leaders look to make decisions, whether it's under a BRAC or things that can happen outside of a BRAC or realignment of missions or creation of a new mission, we want them thinking of Fort Leonard Wood as a place that this type of thing can happen. And one of the ways that we have done that additionally that I did not mention was a couple of years ago we did a joint land use study of Fort Leonard Wood and documented formally that there's relatively no encroachment around Fort Leonard Wood. So where there are a lot of other military installations across the country that are butting up against civilian developments and things like that, we are fortunate to be here in the heart of America where we're surrounded by Mark Twain National Forest, and so
Back to that endearing quality that we have, right?
yes, so we can certainly make the case that we're able to grow. Sorry for the long answer.
All right. Second question. Over the years, veterans have had difficult time traveling to get health care and long waits and things like that. And a few years ago, when I took a tour of the hospital at Fort Leonard Wood, I know there was an initiative to work out something with the Veterans Administration to be able to have veterans go to Fort Leonard Wood for treatment. They were working on a partnership or whatever. Did that ever happen?
Yes, sir. They actually have what are called VA sharing agreements, and so right now there are about, let's see, 400 outpatient visits through VA agreements that are taking place, consistently. So they do have those with certain VA facilities to allow them to seek that care there without having to try to travel. Well, the closest really to us is
Columbia?
Columbia.
Yeah. So if
And down in
a veteran needs care, they have to call Columbia and say, hey, I would like to go to Fort Leonard Wood, or how does that actually work for any veterans?
Well, they contact their servicing VA center and then
Make the request.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council? David?
I just have a quick one. I didn't see your name or email or phone on here. Is that possible to get a card or something?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to leave a business card with you. We certainly welcome any engagements, any feedback, any questions, or anything that we could possibly do. And I do want to make a mention, I didn't recognize it formally, but I said that the city of Rolla and Phelps County has been a great supporter of ours, but you are actually a Tier 1 sustaining member of our organization. We have a formal agreement in place with the city, and so we're pretty thankful that that you all are willing to do that. And it's something that the other cities and counties are doing across the 4-county region. So it's really important for you to know that we've been really a sustaining part of our effort over the last 3 years at least.
Jody?
When do you expect the new hospital to be operational?
So I think that the construction will be complete in 22, and then I think the outfitting of the hospital will take another year. So the best information I have is 23. There's still some additional appropriations that have to be made for the funding of the project, but this year $40 million was appropriated, and so I think there's 2 more installments. It was incrementally funded. We feel pretty comfortable that the funding is going to be there, but it has to actually come, but we think things are on track.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Any other council questions?
Mayor, if I could just offer a comment. So I've been working with Dorsey and the SOP for years now, and they do an incredible job with a small budget. But Dorsey, the $2.5 billion economic impact on Missouri, it doesn't just happen, right? There are bases all over the country. There are states that are much more active and engaged financially in being able to put together those strategic plans of recruiting mission. So I just want to say thank you for the service that you've done, your predecessors, because you do a great job representing this region to the Department of Defense, and I think that's critical in this environment today.
Thank you. Appreciate that very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Next, we have the mid-year 2020 tourism report. Chamber? Stevie?
All right. Hello, everybody. So tonight we are going to be sharing our mid-year tourism updates. So for those on the council that were here last time, this is not going to be as in-depth as the last presentation. That is our year-end presentation, and it includes a lot of financial information and our year-end benchmarks. It's only available at the end of the year. So this is just a highlight of what is happening in the world of tourism from January to the end of June. So we're going to start with our motel tax revenue. And I know we have a lot of new council, so I did want to just give a brief update. So if you do stay in a Rolla hotel, you will pay a 3% tourism tax on top of other sales taxes and fees. Very common across the entire country. Almost every community has a motel tax anymore. This is not something that's just for Rolla. Our motel tax, they vary across the nation. Ours is 3%. The city collects the tax. The city keeps 10% of the tax. So I'm only going to be talking about the 90% that's received to the chamber through our contract. So this chart here identifies first quarter motel tax income, second quarter year-end figures compared to our budget. So it's still very early. We're only halfway through the year. This chart here is a better comparison of where we're sitting currently. So this is a 5-year chart of where we have been at the end of June. So you will see 2020 has definitely taken a hit. We are $22,000 behind the same time last year, $16,000 shy from 2018. A lot of this is going to be due to COVID activities, and we'll get into that a little bit later in the presentation. Next, I'd like to highlight our expenses, but there's really just not a ton of stuff to report. The detailed information is all in your packet, but we're right in line, obviously, with where our budget is. And like I said, with COVID, we've really been paying extra attention to our budget with the uncertainty of motel tax income, since that is where all of our income derives. So we've had to really pay close attention of what we're spending and what we are doing, which brings me to our marketing efforts. So we're going to talk about our tourism-related events and projects, starting with COVID. So coronavirus hit our community really hard starting in March. That's when we started to see everything start to cancel. Started with the St. Pat's, and it continued with other events, other meetings, camps, you name it, everything started canceling. We all lived through it. But that definitely brought a lot of uncertainty with it. Of course, no one really knew what was going to happen or how intense things were going to happen. So a lot of uncertainty. Also, since we were just talking about Fort Leonard Wood, COVID has had an impact, obviously, through Fort Leonard Wood. Our community does receive a lot of visitors from Fort Leonard Wood, the families that live on the base, as well as the people traveling to this area for graduations. Well, since Fort Leonard Wood has been closed to people coming and going, our community definitely took a hit from that. So there's just a variety of things that come into factor. But through it all, we know we're not in it alone. It is a worldwide pandemic, and everybody and every business is dealing with consequences of COVID-19. So we are aware that that is will cause issues with our income for motel tax. Our staff took a lot of time the past few months to really look and pay attention to our expenditures, especially to see where we could cut and save money, not knowing what motel tax will do. And then, of course, talk to our board about it. So we did cut quite a bit of our expenditures that we felt comfortable with cutting for the rest of this year, and we're going to highlight some of that stuff. So we're going to get into some events. Obviously, St. Pat's is a huge event for the community. It did get canceled because of COVID. One thing that we do host in conjunction with St. Pat's is St. Pat's 5K and beer run that happens right before the parade. Of course, all of the work had already been done. All of the expenses have already been paid, and a couple days before the event, everything got canceled. So we decided at the time of cancellation to not just completely cancel it, but we're just going to postpone it till May. But then, of course, stay at home happened, and you lived through it. So we decided to just cancel the event, obviously, and hopefully we'll be back on track for 2021. Then early March, before things started closing, our staff did attend the Missouri Division of Tourism had a marketing meeting in Jefferson City. It was extremely informational. We were able to talk about our marketing strategies with tourism organizations from across the state. So we all shared some strengths and weaknesses and threats that we were all facing at the time. And you know, when you get to share that information with your other partners across the state, it's always very helpful. And also during that meeting, the state's Division of Tourism unveiled their marketing campaign for the year. Just a few days after that, we did have a meeting with our hotel owners, managers, and staff. We try to have this meeting at least once a year, just so we can get on the same page with our hotel properties. We talked to them about events and the reason that we reach out to them and talk to them about room rates or blocking rooms for upcoming events and how important it is to have clear communication back and forth with each other. So we did talk about the best way for us to communicate with them is through email, so we can hit all of them at the same time. And following this was such a great meeting. A lot of great information came out of this, and we have been communicating much better with they have been responding much better too with our communications, especially during COVID and all of the uncertainties. A lot of emails, phone calls, text messages with our hotel managers just to check in on them and see how things were going, keep those communication lines open. And again, we have this meeting at least once a year, sometimes it's twice a year. Moving on to another event, the Great Race. When I was here last time, we were talking about this. We were super excited for it to come through our community. This is a nationwide antique car race. Goes across the United States, and they were supposed to stop here June 23rd. Obviously, with everything happening across the nation, they didn't cancel it. It was pushed back to technically August the 25th. But then as things progressed through the year, states started reclosing. This is not just a Missouri event. Like I said, it goes across multiple states. So things that happen there affect the whole race. They decided just to cancel the whole thing for this year. But we are back on schedule for next year. The Rolla lunch stop will be June 22nd, 2021. And of course, we'll keep the council posted on more information as it gets closer to that event. Super excited to announce the launch of our new website, visitrolla.com. Of course, visitrolla.com has been around for a long time, but we have a new look to it. I love this new website. If you have not been to visitrolla.com since May, early May is when we revealed the new look, please go take a look at it. It is ADA compliant. It has a lot more information available to it, in-depth information. So when you click on it, you'll see pictures of the local tourism entities, businesses, attractions, restaurants, all of those types of things. Think of things you would do if you were to go to another community. That's all going to be on visitrolla.com. One of my favorite things on the website is the calendar of events. And I love the new look to this website because it's more detailed information, more links to if somebody is having an event, links to all of their contact information, their website, their social media pages, whatever it is that they have their event listed on, it's all going to be on there. So please take a look at the new website and give us your feedback and let us know what you think. If anything is missing, obviously we'd want to take care of that. Also, we have a revised, updated version of our Rolla Visitor Guide. Hopefully everybody saw that as you walked into City Hall today. Just sitting right out front. This was fresh off the press, early July, but all of the work happened during the time I'm reporting on. So our staff does a great job of putting detailed information into this visitor's guide. It is basically our whole website wrapped into a brochure. And whenever we got the new website or the new brochure, we did deliver that to all of the hotels. So anybody that goes to one of our local hotels can pick up a visitor's guide. They're here at City Hall. They're also at the county courthouse. A lot of the real estate agencies do have these on hand to give to new families that are coming to the area. And if anybody else would like to, restaurants, gas stations, anybody that would like to have some visitors guides on hand, they just need to let us know and we will get them supplied. So now we're going to go over our marketing efforts. The marketing efforts for radio and social media. So every Wednesday morning, we are on the Morning Mayor Show, so please tune in to Results Radio and listen to us. We always have a good time with the Morning Mayors, and it's our opportunity to highlight the things that are happening in the community from week to week. We also have text alerts. I've talked about this before with the council. If you have not signed up to receive our text alerts, please text Rolla to 57838 and you will start to receive our announcements. We send out at least 2 a week, I would say, depending on what is happening in the area. And it's just updating you on events. So maybe registration for an event is open, or it's just a couple days around the corner till the Phelps County Fair. Get your fair tickets, those kinds of things, just to encourage some excitement for the tourism things that are happening in the area. This is a snapshot of our billboard that is along I-44. We have 2. One faces eastbound traffic, the other faces westbound traffic. We try to drive everyone to visitorolla.com, and of course our exit is 184 for the visitor center. And then that same look that's on our billboard, we do pull into a lot of our marketing efforts. So this is just the header for our monthly e-newsletter. We've talked about this a couple of other times. Our newsletter comes out towards the beginning of the month, each month, and it highlights events that are happening in the area or a tourism type of business, anything new that might be coming to the community to get people excited about. And if you have not signed up to receive these newsletters, you can do so at the top right-hand corner of visitorolla.com. Or you can just call us and we'll add you to the list. Next, we're going to hit our Facebook. So this is a video of some of our posts from January through June. Of course, COVID was right in the middle of that. Stay at home, I mean, obviously we still have COVID, but stay at home was right in the middle of that. We did promote curbside takeout, gift cards, virtual events, changes that were happening in the area, trying to keep people informed of what you can do and what you can't do, what businesses are open or not open, doing curbside, their changes in hours, because it was just a lot of information. So we tried to push it out there as best as we could, but we also tried to push some positivity and some fun out there on our social. That's what social media is for, is fun, right? So we had some social media contests to try to engage with our followers, and so we did, with those social media contests, we highlighted some of the local tourism types of businesses, and we had a lot of engagement from our followers. We reached 13,000 people and had almost 3,000 engagements of all kinds. So it was a lot of fun, gave out some prizes, drove some traffic to some of our local businesses. And this is a snapshot of our Instagram post. So our Instagram is still very young. It is still new for Visit Rolla. We've had 19 posts from January through June. We have 755 followers. Of course, we try to keep the messages not all identical. If you post something on Facebook, it's not going to identically be the same on Instagram. You kind of have some different audiences. You have some people that are on both platforms, but we try to engage them differently on those different platforms. So if you are an Instagram person, please go follow Visit Rolla. You will like all of the information that we post. It's all about what's happening in our community. This is the ad that we placed in the Phelps County Focus's annual Newcomers Guide. This is a sample ad of a banner ad that was on an e-newsletter from Missouri Life. With COVID, we've had to change some of our marketing. A lot of our ads that we place, they try to drive traffic to what's happening during the time the publication might come out. So if it's farmers markets or Summerfest or the Arts and Crafts Festival, those types of things. But a lot of our events during this time had been canceled. So we had to change our marketing message to make it more generic, not like, hey, come out to this festival or this event, but outdoor adventure, wineries, Route 66, those types of things, just to still get people engaged. People are still going on road trips and those types of things. So you'll see that throughout the rest of the slides also. The next couple of slides are going to be sample ads of what we've placed in some print magazines like Missouri Life and Show Me Missouri magazine. So obviously during part of this time was promoting all of the St. Pat's activities that are huge for tourism in our area. And then this is some sample ads of what was happening during the time of the publication. Here's going to be some of our more generic ads that you can see. Not driving people to a specific show that was happening, but live theater, outdoor adventure, festivals, those types of things, very generic. Still trying to drive traffic to visit Rolla.com for more current information. Then this is a full-page ad that we placed in Missouri Life's biking trail guide. Rolla and Phelps County is a very bicycle-friendly area, so this is just a map of some routes and some information. This is a 2-page advertisement that was in the Missouri Life Scenic Rides and Drives Guide. Now let's talk grants. So again, I know we have new council. So if you're not familiar, part of our tourism efforts is to provide grants to other entities. So other organizations that are hosting events, meetings, conferences, tournaments, those types of things. Our grants do vary in amounts from $250 to $5,000. It depends on if it's just a 5K or a 2-day meeting or conference or a huge sporting tournament that lasts several days and you book several hotel rooms. Because again, the money from these grants comes from our tourism dollars. So if you're booking hotel stays, obviously, you're going to qualify for more funding. However, due to the uncertainty of motel tax income that does provide us this opportunity to provide grants, we felt more comfortable with taking a pause on grants this year. So we did, you'll see in your detailed report in your packet, we did fund $1,500 worth of grants. It was 2 different grants because they were already pre-approved. We had already committed to those. So we did fund those, but all of the entities, organizations that had previously applied for grants, we did send them notification. Due to the uncertainty of our income, we are unable to provide grants this year, but we will still help promote what you have taking place or help you in any way that we can. Everybody was definitely understanding. And some of the events that we would have normally sponsored ended up being canceled in the end anyways. And we did let them know that as tourism income becomes more stable, we will open up the grants just as soon as we feel comfortable with doing so. And I always like to report land and building updates. So we do maintain about a 10-acre tract of land over where the visitor center sits. We have about 5 older buildings on the property. And it is a beautiful park-like setting, so if you haven't been up there, I encourage you and invite you to come and do so. So we are responsible for all of the buildings and all of the property. And when I think I was here last, I did talk about our roof replacements. We have had to replace all of the roofs on all of the buildings, so we did that. And then during the last 6 months, the only thing was just minor cleanup. The back of the visitor center was starting to get pretty dingy. We do not utilize the back deck very often at all. And so we have a caretaker that lives on the property that helps us with mowing the grass and keeping everything clean and tidy. So he power washed the back of the visitor center building, did a few updates, power washed the back deck there, replaced a broken board, and it's absolutely beautiful. So not a whole lot of things that we had to work on. And I think that is the end of my report. So again, unless there's any questions.
Terrific, Stevie. Carolyn?
Despite the COVID, thank you very much. I think you're doing a great job. And that's not just you, it's all of you also. Thank you.
Yeah, we do have a great team.
You do.
That worked really hard during all of this to still hopefully keep everybody informed and engaged.
Now just get rid of the COVID and we'll be fine.
Yes, I'm working on that.
Okay, good.
Rachel?
Yeah, I also want to just second Carolyn. It just seems like you guys have done a really great job sort of pivoting and sort of switching up your strategies to kind of deal with this crisis. The one question I had is sort of like looking at the Visit Rolla website, which I did look at earlier today, actually. It does look very beautiful. Is there sort of a plan to kind of keep working on sort of ADA compliance? Because like, for instance, running it through the web accessibility sort of checkers, online checkers, there was some like
some things on it, so.
I do have to say that I'm not as knowledgeable in that area as some people might be, but we do hire a very talented woman that works on that does all of this tech part of our website. And so we did talk to her about making sure that the new website was ADA compliant. So there's always small things that need to updates and things that need to be done to the site. We can do some things on our own. Obviously, text updates, adding events, taking events off of there, updating photos and things like that. But when it gets very techy, we do outsource that to her. And she's very knowledgeable of what needs to be done to keep it ADA compliant. So as we continue to do updates, we will. And if you notice that anything is missing, by all means, please let us know too.
Thank you.
Christine, Ann, or Lister, any questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that your enthusiasm is certainly worth $1 million tax dollars to me.
Thank you. I love that. Thank you so much.
There's such diversity in everything that the chamber does. It's just exciting. So.
We do appreciate that. We appreciate your involvement too. I see you at a lot of our functions, and that means a lot. So thanks.
Christine?
Also, Stevie, I know one of the social media things you did back in the spring that you guys sponsored was the nominated teacher, and was really heartwarming in a rough time to see parents get on the different schools and say, oh, this is wonderful about this teacher or this teacher. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, thank you so much. We had such a great response from those posts. It was very heartwarming to see all the love that went out for our teachers. So thanks.
Any other council questions? Davey, thank you. Ladies, thank you. Rodney, you always have a very tough act to follow. You know, if you bribe me, I can put you ahead next time.
I won't be quite as enthusiastic as you. Thank you for having me tonight. So this is, I got two things to do tonight. One is our normal third-quarter report. That's basically a report of our activities over the last 3 months, and then present our fiscal year budget. So with that, let me minimize this. It's this one right here. All right, just a reminder, so I do come every 3 months. This report is available on the full report's available on our website for any of our customers that want to look at the full report. It's out there on our website. They can view that. If there's ever any questions about what we're doing, why we're doing it, those kinds of things, I encourage any of the council to give me a call. Our pass messages on through John, or again, we encourage our customers to give us a call too. And again, I'm not going to go through everything in the report, just to kind of give a few highlights. Start off with our financials, and again, I'm not going to go through everything. Compared to last year, our operating revenues are down. That is by design. But you also see our expenses are down a little bit too, mainly in power supply costs. Again, this year has not been quite as cold or quite as hot as the previous year, so we're down a little bit in power supply costs. So we're showing a net operating income of down about $1.2 million. And you look at our total net income, we're down about a little over $1.3 million compared to the previous year. And again, that is by design. If you recall, we had power cost adjustments, water cost adjustments that were in place for about a 3 or 4 year period. We made those permanent about a year ago, in addition to some other things. So we've been discounting our rates and providing that money back to our customers. So we are, by design, have reduced our revenue. So let everyone know that. So, but again, from a financial standpoint, we're a very healthy organization. Just a couple things on my glasses. Go flip the page and put my glasses on. You'll see the crew's working out on Kings Highway related to the TDD project. Mainly, we've been very focused on the south side of Kings Highway. Starting getting we've done a lot of preliminary work, and we're now in the last week or so, we've been starting to transition businesses over to our new line. So I think there's only about 5. I think they're probably working on the radio station over there as I speak. getting it converted to new lines, but we've got about, I think, 5 major buildings on the south side or areas on the south side yet to do. A lot of those all been converted over to new lines. Once we get that mostly tied up, then we'll be moving to the north side, McDonald's and everything through there. We've got a lot of poles already in place. We got a lot of tree trimming or tree clearing, probably more likely. Some more poles put in, lines put in, but then we'll start focusing on the north side. Very large project for us. And that's all I'm going to touch on electrical. We got a lot of other things going on, but that is the major project we have going on right now. With regard to water, we are working heavy on Olive Street. We did some of that project last year, mainly around the Baptist Church south down to about Archer Open area and Phillips and Company. And we put that on pause, worked in some other areas over the winter months, and we're back working mainly from about 4th Street south on, we're going all the way to 72. So that's mainly where our water crews are working at right now. And as we get the work done, we're doing temporary patches, and the city crews will come in, or their contract will come in and patch after us. But again, that's one of the major projects we've got going on in the water department. We'll probably be working on that yet for another month or 2. A couple of things just on some other miscellaneous stuff. We've been working getting fiber into our communications building, which is up, it's old AT&T building at 12th and Oak. We've been pulling fiber in there, but we're working with a new contractor that's going to be deploying some fiber optic services in town, doing co-location and possibly some dark fiber leases. So if you see some ads for potential of new fiber in town, we're working with that company as far as providing a space for some of their electronic equipment. In addition, just kind of on our power supply, our power pool is contracted for 30 megawatts of wind energy coming out of as partial replacement for our expiring coal contract that we get some coal power out of Illinois. So we should have about 30 megawatts wind coming on next year and some coal coming offline. So we're kind of making preps for that. And the other thing to note, just in the last 3 months, as far as our statewide organization, is our CEO of the Electric Commission MPUA, Duncan Kinchlow, announced his retirement last year. We went through a fairly extensive process looking for a replacement. And as a state organization, we've hired John Twitty as our new CEO of the MPUA organization. So if you recall, John was general manager here in Rolla back in, I want to say, the early 80s. Say something. He was with Army for about 7-8 years, moved on to Springfield, was in Springfield about 20 years, was a general manager down in Springfield, utilities or city utilities of Springfield. Since he retired there, he's been involved with TAPS organization, which is our national transmission access system. So he's been still very heavily involved in the municipal world, but he's back in Missouri, and like I said, he's the new head of our statewide organization, so we'll be seeing him more and more. And he's going to be pretty active in the state. He wants to come out and visit the systems in the state and meet and greet and see what's going on. So that's the other significant thing I wanted to report. And with that, like I said, there's a lot more information on the actual board packet we've got up there, but happy to answer any questions.
Rodney, 2 questions.
Go to the budget.
Water lines, Oxford, Cambridge, Norwich. That's not a very old subdivision.
That's correct.
Why are those lines having to be replaced?
So we are replacing service lines in those subdivisions. So something we started about 2 years ago was a service line replacement crew. So we kind of refreshed the council's memory if you didn't know this. We've been replacing water mains very hard and heavy since the mid-90s. So we've been about almost 25 years now of replacing water mains in town. And at this point, we're about 70% of the water mains in town have either been installed new or replaced by our crews since the 90s. So it means we got 30% of our mains are old and still have leaks, those kinds of things, but that's what we've been doing on our major projects. When we did all those, we left the copper service lines in place. New subdivisions have gone in, some places with new plastic mains, but we still have copper service lines. And what we've seen over the last 10 years is those copper service lines, especially the newer ones, are deteriorating. And so what we're doing in lots of subdivisions is the service line crew has been going through and replacing copper service lines and pulling PEX in. And so that's what we did, and that's the most recent subdivisions were that subdivision off of Winchester and South.
Okay. Second question, on the MPUA rates, the pool approved the new rate structure, and it's a little bit complicated here and over my head, but there's some decrease here, some raise there, blah, blah, blah. Where's this netting out?
Netting out lower rates for the entire members.
Okay, and that's done, that's set yearly, or that's a multi-year?
That is, it's going to be multi-year. It's basically, we're taking advantage of, as we phase out of this Dynegy coal contract and into more, some renewables and natural gas, overall, our costs for the entire pool are decreasing, and this was a good time to look at how we structure our rates and how we charge ourselves and realign them more to cost causation. So it's if you're a high load factor, a city like Rolla, it actually may be a little bit more beneficial, but on the overall, every city is going to see our rates go down.
Okay, thank you. Council questions? David?
I had a couple questions and one comment. We had a tree fall at a neighbor's yard about 2 weeks ago. Wasn't any wind, but just came down, pulled a couple of the weather heads off some houses around us. And I just wanted to mention that besides Chief Smith's crew with the fire department, your crews were out very fast, very safety conscious, very good at communication with the neighbors about what was going on, very professional and very fast and efficient with the parts that they could do. Obviously, some of the folks, the homeowners, had to do a couple repairs before they could get some things going, but RMU did everything they could to try to help the homeowners get, the ones that could, get the power back on, and like I said, they were good with communication with all of us. So I just wanted to say, this is just one case study in everything you guys do, but appreciate the service that everybody gives, how quick everybody in your department, and that has a lot to do with how you guys set up the whole structure of people being on call and those kinds of things. So just wanted to say a thank you for not just that incident, but all the things you guys do. That was just a microcosm.
I appreciate that, and I'll pass that on.
And then the other two things, are you allowed to mention to us right now about the company that is going to be maybe putting in the new...
I think that's, yeah, we've had an open meeting at Socket Communications.
Socket? And they'll be putting in fiber in certain areas that are going to be more higher demand?
I don't know their total deployment strategy, but mainly working in the downtown area.
Okay, great. And the other question, I did read in your newsletter a little more about the Grain Belt Express. Obviously, that's something I'm always interested in. Could you give us just a quick 30-second minute thing about what's going on?
Yeah, the legislative session ended with no action really taken on the Grain Belt Express to slow its progress down. I think all the court cases are done now. We know the developer, Invenergy, is very active now. Again, COVID, like we know, has slowed them down a little bit, but they've been very active working Missouri and Kansas both, trying to acquire easements. So right now, that until we get to the fall session, we don't know exactly what will happen on a state legislative standpoint, but we know the developer is trying to move forward with trying to acquire easements for the project and get that project moving.
Not a guarantee, but it's headed in a good direction.
It's going in a good direction. That's correct.
Thanks.
Any other, Jody?
On the second to the last bullet, it says MPUA is offering basic cybersecurity training to its members.
Right.
Do you have any plans to do that, or is it something that you're interested in?
We've had that talked at several meetings, and I've got my IT person communicating with MPUA to do some of the training is more what not to do training, and where you do. And I don't want to talk a lot about it because it's all going to be a surprise to whoever might fall for it. But we are working. We do talk that cybersecurity and physical security both are very topics that have a high priority level for not just utilities, but for almost anybody.
Okay, thank you, Rodney.
All right, I'll move on to the budget. And talk about that very quickly. Again, I'm going to do a high-level overview. The project, working through our budget takes many months. And again, I think everyone can provide that budget, but if you'd like me to sit down, go through our financials with you, I'd be happy to do that anytime. The budget was approved by the Board of Public Works at our July meeting, and so I want to talk a little bit about what our process is. So we're on an October 1 through September 30 fiscal year, same fiscal year as the city has. We start our budget process typically in March for an October 1 start. The reason we do that is, you'll see in a little bit, we just have a process to work through. So starting in March, we talk about capital projects that we are doing and plan to do. Talk about our operating expenses and things that might change. If we need to talk about rates, restructuring, adjustments, rates, we talk about that, start talking about it then. Any other fees, policy changes that we need to change. We start talking about that in March. And we talk about then we start working on our projections for our current year, projections for that upcoming fiscal year, what we think power supply costs might do. What do we think if we have rate changes? What projects, what we're working on, what might change in our expenses. We provide a preliminary budget to the board in May, a public hearing on the budget and rates, any rate changes in June, and then the board approves that budget in July. And now that's why I'm here. There's a city ordinance that requires that 30 days prior to the effective date, I present our budget to the city council for comment. So in order to meet that deadline, that's why I'm here tonight. Just a few of the budget highlights. We've got about $30 million in operating revenues slated, a little under $29 million in operating expenses, and we've got a pretty aggressive capital expenditure budget this year. We usually don't get all this done, but it's pretty aggressive. Some of the things we have is potentially buying a substation transformer at one of our substations. That's about a $350,000 purchase. We're talking about automated meter infrastructure, a more advanced way to read our meters. That could be about $1 million expenditure if we lock in on a particular vendor. Elevators are expensive to have and operate. You guys know that, I think, in this building, but the controls in our elevator in our building are about, I'd say 30 years old or so, still original. About $150,000 upgrade we got to make there. We buy line trucks, not every year, but when we buy a line truck, it's kind of like buying a fire truck. They're about $300,000 a piece, buy line trucks. So we have one of those, but actually two of those that might hit this budget year. We're looking at a device called a backyard aerial lift. Basically, when we work in backyards and do tree trimming, usually our guys get up as high as they can, or they're using pole saws and by hand do a lot of that tree trimming by hand or lines. We're looking for a device that we can get in those backyards and actually get them up 60 feet, 50, 60, 70 feet in the air to do that trimming higher up and be more effective, more efficient at doing it, and also be able to do a better job of when we're back in there. Get those really high limbs and keep them away from our power line. And then the other thing we have this year is the Kings Highway project. We're going to replace the water mains in Kings Highway. That's about 1966 vintage water mains. I think based on looking at some of the older fire hydrants, we're going to do that, and that's about a $600,000 project to replace the water mains just in that short stretch of road. It's a pretty expensive project. That just kind of give you an idea of some of the things that we've got planned on our capital budget. So when you look at the budget, you see the page off on the right. Again, I apologize, it's pretty small print for this, but you can see that, again, our budget's online too. Just kind of talk about the different departments. For the electric department, basically we're looking at change in cash. Again, if we do all of our capital projects without losing about $1 million. Again, that's by design. Nothing to be too concerned about. And then on the water side, a budget change in cash of about $880,000. And again, Kings Highway is a $600,000 portion of that loss. So we've been working on the water department for many years to make it cash flow better and better every year. Talk about that in a little bit too. So our budget change in cash, again, if we do all our capital projects, is about a loss of about $2 million. And again, we won't get all our capital projects done. That kind of gives you a flavor for where we're going to be. And again, a lot of that's by design, and hate to say don't be concerned about that loss, but that's by design. I want to usually try and tell the council where we're at with lease purchases. Typically, as a utility, we do not do a lot of borrowing of money. We have for 3 major projects over the years since I've been here. This is the only one we still owe money on it. We built 2 water tanks and put some water mains in the south side back in 2003. I borrowed, I think, $2.4 million to do those projects. We've been paying that off on a fixed rate, but we have about a $530,000 balance, and that will be paid off in just a few years. Transfers to the general fund. again, this is a sheet we include in our budget, but we try and, based on the revenues we expect to generate and collect, we estimate based on those sales what the pilot will be to collect on behalf of the city of Rolla. So that's this information. Again, we bill 5%, kind of like a franchise fee, but it's a payment in lieu of tax. So similar to what Fidelity, Ameren, those entities collect, and we transfer that over to the city, I believe, on a monthly basis. So we're estimating a little under $1.5 million that we'll collect in the pilot next year. The only rate change that we have slated was actually approved last year. It was a 2-year rate increase. Was approved last year. Through the year we're in, current fiscal year we're raised the rate 40 cents per 1,000 gallons. Next year, starting in October, we'll raise that again another 45 cents. And again, the whole purpose of that is to support our capital investment program, capital improvement plan, replacing water mains, maintaining our facilities, and improving our facilities. And with that, I'm happy to be.
Yeah, I want to circle back to the 3 council persons that are remote. Can you take it off the screen so we can see them?
Oh.
Can you take yours off? Yeah, Christine, Ann, or Lister, do you have any questions for Rodney?
Yeah, I have a question. This is Mr. Florence, I'm Ward 3 representative. I saw that Ameren has a plan to increase rates, and I'm glad that you notified us. I wasn't really aware of that. Do you have an idea when that's going to come into effect? And I didn't know what AMI customers was, so I was asking you to give me an understanding of that.
So the water increase, I think I got the first question was the water rate increase. I think that was actually,
No, the Ameren plan, the new rates for the AMI customer.
For Ameren, okay. So, yeah, I'm sorry. For Ameren, one of the things we kind of follow is what's going on in other entities, and this happens to be one of the big investor utility in Kansas City, or not Kansas City, I'm sorry, St. Louis area. They are transitioning to AMI meter reading, which is automated meter infrastructure. So it's a 2-way communication where they can talk to their meters, sometimes you can use it to turn customers on and off, but it's a much more 2-way communication, it's 1-way communication. So as they're deploying those meters, our understanding is they're going to offer time of use rates with those meters. And as they do that, they're going to start off with a fairly simple program, but the whole idea, I think, with their structure, as I've been told, is to try and figure out ways to save their customers money, but also change some customer habits of trying to get them off peak hours, trying to use power at nighttime, off hours from the afternoon when Ameren would hit their normal peak. Mainly just saying that as that's just kind of something happening in the state. Not necessarily something we're going to do in Rolla, but yet.
So why, Rodney?
What's that?
Why wouldn't we do that or look at it?
Same reason. If with the new structure that we have coming, there might be ways that we as a city utility can save money. One of that might be trying to shift our peaks around. And so it's information provided by our board and that we're getting to say, hey, this is some of the techniques some of the other entities, especially large.
So the reason we're not looking at it is because we don't have the meter technology.
We do not have meter technology to do that today.
Okay, thank you.
Was that the only question you had?
Yes, it was. Thank you, Rodney.
All right, you're welcome.
Rodney, I have one.
Rodney?
Oh, I'm sorry. Ann, go ahead.
I have a question. With the incidence of COVID and the student population down in many where the businesses were closed, how did that reflect in revenue? And did homes being more occupied all the time balance that out at all? Or was there any notable loss?
From locally, we didn't see a real significant change, mainly because we're pretty heavy industrial. We sell bedroom communities. We didn't see a big significant change. From a pool-wide standpoint, and I don't have that information here, we did see on our overall pool, we saw a loss of load from March, mainly in April and May, and a lot of that is starting to recover now. So we're seeing the load start to come back up. But there was some, as a pool-wide level, there was some change and some loss of load.
Yeah, I know that wasn't by design.
Right, no, it wasn't.
Okay.
Rodney, one thing we haven't talked about in a long time, the sale of the Alferman substation
Yeah.
to an entity, as I recall, was to start to put the links in place for a much, much bigger regional project. And one of the things I remember is our hope that there would be some redundant main lines that come into Rolla. Where does that whole thing stand?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. I probably should have mentioned that in here. Ameren has been busy, or actually it's AXTI, it's a subsidiary of Ameren, has been working on the Dillon substation, which is going to be located just to the west of the industrial park, a little bit west of the new FedEx building. That substation is well underway. And then they've been starting to work in the Alferman substation, our substation, getting ready for a control house and those kinds of things. The timeline I got just a few weeks ago is they're slated to go operational or go commercial with that facility in November. Mid-November is kind of what the timeline is right now, and then we would be closing on our transaction just a few weeks after that. But that project is well underway. It's still a lot of work to get done. We're making modifications with fiber optics and relays and other things we have to do in our substation. We're prepping for that, but we're on target to be complete with that project in
What about that redundant line that was going to come in?
Yes.
I think that was the other group that, other than Ameren.
Right. Yeah, what will happen is once the Dillon substation is complete, end of the year, we will have more. What it does is really beef up the electric grid here in Phelps County, not only for us, but for the co-op and for Ameren. And then instead of our line being a radial feed, actually the power will flow through our substation back out, either multi-directional, so that if we lose one line to the other, we've got a much more robust connection. Okay. And that's all going to take place also in November. That'll all come online with that project.
Good, thank you. Any other council questions? Thank you very much, Roger.
All right, thank you.
Moving on to old business, the first item is an ordinance readopting procedures to disclose potential conflict of interest. Is it John or Stephanie?
Yeah, I'll take that. By state law, the city is required to have its officers file an annual financial disclosure requirement to the Ethics Department, Missouri Ethics Commission. The city years ago exercised an option under the state law that allows the city of Rolla to enact their own ordinance, which we did. It requires the city administrator, the mayor, the finance director, and the utilities general manager of RMU to file that annual financial disclosure report. But there's a caveat that every 2 years that ordinance has to be readopted to stay compliant with the state. So we did a first reading at the last council meeting. We're asking for a final reading of the renewal of our local policy on financial disclosure.
Any questions for John?
An ordinance of the City of Rolla, Missouri repealing Section 2-237 of the Code of the City of Rolla, Missouri, a procedure to disclose potential conflicts of interest and substantial interest for certain municipal officials, and enacting a new section in lieu thereof.
Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion made and second. Roll call vote.
Higgins,
Yes.
Bolin,
Yes.
Reuter,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Murphy, Murphy,
Yes.
Lyons,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Muse.
I'm sure he'll say yes.
Florence,
Yay.
Eberly,
Yes.
Schott,
Yes.
11 ayes.
Ordinance is approved. Next item under old business is an ordinance to contract the rec center management to Power Wellness.
We've been working on this for many months, and it really is a way of ensuring the financial sustainability of the rec center. We're very pleased with that facility. Overall, it looks great after 18 years. It's well over 3 million visitors, but it's never fully covered its operating cost and capital costs, ranging anywhere from 70% to about 85% of that. This year is going to be down because of COVID. But one of the challenges have been, what's the long-term plan for this facility? And we've explored lots of different avenues, tried lots of different things with the Rec Center Advisory Commission. There are some very drastic efforts. The city could close the facility, the city could privatize the facility entirely, the city could try to find a partner that they could lease it to, like a YMCA. there's the prospect of going back for the voters for tax support, but as we've looked and talked about those issues over the last several months, all of them have their obvious challenges associated with it. So looking at this idea of finding a firm with expertise in running rec centers, particularly those with a health component, with a medical integration element that allows a sort of an expanded array of services. We had done a formal search of firms earlier this year, selected Power Wellness after a couple of months of due diligence, and over the last 60 days or so negotiated a contract that we got before you for a final reading that basically establishes them as the managing partner of the facility. They would assume all the employees of the rec center. The city would then be billed for those services, as well as a management fee of about $8,000 per month, or $96,000 per year. And that would replace what had been a transfer from the rec center to the general fund to the tune of about $70,000, where basically the city hall staff, myself, finance department, legal, mayor, others, providing sort of that support to try and get them to sustainability, costing the center about $70,000 to do that, and we've been unsuccessful in that effort. It's just an area in a competitive environment that traditional public parks and recreation mentality has not been able to close that gap. So we're really excited to be working with Power Wellness. If the council is prepared to sign off on this contract, we'll start the transition immediately, and the plan is the effective date of the commencement date on the contract would be as of November 15th. They would be literally doing the billing, payroll services, everything associated with running the center. It's a 5-year contract, provides for a 2-year extension. And goodness, there's probably lots of things I could answer, but let me throw it out to you for any questions that you might have at this point.
Any questions for John? David?
I got a few. One I just thought of right now as you were mentioning that. Do we expect that any of the salaries to change? I mean, do we expect that as part of like the cost savings that we would see the salaries of anybody increase? That's going to pretty much stay standard?
We don't know that.
We don't know?
Yeah.
Okay. The other two questions, I know we've talked about this, but just mention it again. There's a 3-year time period where we would be trying to get to break-even point. Is that about right?
Well, it's a 5-year contract. We believe the projection will be in year 3, it will reach sustainability.
And just wanted to have an idea again, because I know we have to find kind of some alternative sources of funding. What do we think is the maybe worst case scenario that we would go having to make up until that we break even point? Could you give us a ballpark figure of a worst case scenario?
Time or dollars?
I was going to say dollars.
300,000?
No, in the upper, probably closer to 200,000 off the projections now.
Yep. There's really two, what I'm going to call break-even points for sustainability. One is what really occurs within the building, and that's what you see on the pro forma. But keep in mind that the city-owned facility, and we still have to take care of the building itself. So to reach true fiscal sustainability,
right,
it probably is another year out. John, would you say?
They're saying by year 4,
Okay,
they can be there.
Right. Okay. And then the last question is just, obviously our goal would be they get some incentives and they bring us to kind of solvency there. The question I have is about if we are blessed enough to have money coming in because they're doing a good job, that money obviously goes in a fund. Does that, obviously we need some money for roof repairs and things like that that we've been tapping into our fund that we don't have. So I just want to address where any money, if we are able to have a little bit of reserve, goes to. Obviously, repairs I would assume would be part of it. And just part of my question, the reason I'm asking it is, if we're successful and there's money coming into that, is there a possibility to have some of that money geared toward some more community-based programs? I know we've discussed this before, but so that's kind of a 2-piece question there.
Yeah, it's a good question. That's for a future council to decide. So we have to get there first.
Sure.
We're probably going to have to pay money back to wherever we borrow to bridge ourselves. But
Right.
yeah, down the road, that's a future council could look at that.
Otherwise, we're basically also trying to get money in that account for any issues that come up.
Yeah, if it gets to the point where it's throwing off positive earnings, those earnings are not the property of Power Wellness. That's the property of the city and the council. So a future council will have the discretion to use those monies as they see fit.
Is there a basic amount we want to have in, get up to have, like if air conditioner breaks or roof thing, or, is there a
Well,
basic?
if we used what we've used these last 2 years, it's about $1 million.
For maintenance issues?
No, just, the goal has always been to maintain a $1 million reserve fund
Reserve.
to do the balance, and that'll be replacing the roofs every 30 years, HVAC units
Pool
every
packs,
20. pool packs.
HVAC, yeah. But there's nothing magic about the $1 million. It could be a little bit less, could be more, we'll get there.
Thank you.
We made some changes this week. Do we have to accept the amend the changes?
Yeah.
As amended. So the final copy was what was,
Correct. So, and I'll explain that just real briefly. So in your packets was really a red line version that showed all the tracking that we did since the last meeting. That's fine. Those were all things that were not very dramatic in their final production. On Friday, we made a couple more tweaks just to fill in some blanks, quite frankly. It was 2 pages, pages 1 and page 21. Page 21, the point is worth clarifying. It's on the owner-auditor rights. And it just wasn't very clear what happens if we were to choose to hire our own auditor to check their books. What really comes of that? So we wanted to provide some teeth in that. And so basically, if there is a line item overcharge on their point of the 15% per that line item, they have to pay for that audit. We think an audit expense could be anywhere from $3,000 to $8,000, something like that. Plus, they have to repay that overcharge on the following billable amount. So we just didn't have very much structure in the original agreement. When I asked Power Wellness that, they said, quite frankly, no one's ever asked us to audit our books. We've had such success with our partners, and we don't think that's going to be the case here, but we wanted to take out that what if. So we did add that language to what was in your package prior to that.
so it's been amended since the first reading.
Correct, yes.
Remote council persons, any questions? No? Yeah?
The people who I've talked to have been concerned that there will be a lack of public access. I know I keep bringing it up, but in my ward, there are several people who are low income, and they do want to have access. And so when we talk about medical integration, I just want to be really clear. Are we talking about Medicaid and Medicare as well?
So medical integration is not in phase 1. That's the first question. The second thing is, in terms of lack of access, there's nothing that we envision that is going to restrict what is happening now. So clearly, the idea is to expand what we're having. So if your question is if anybody's participating now, will they be excluded under the Power of Wellness? And the answer to that would be no.
No, that's not my question. My question is, will they have a lack of access because costs will go up? Or will costs stay the same and they'll continue to have lack of access because it's already too expensive for people?
Okay.
I'm talking about low-income people having access. That's what I'm talking about.
So we've made it very clear that the revenue per person is going to go up in the next couple of years. That doesn't necessarily mean the membership fee is going to go up, but it does mean that the average revenue per person is going to go up. I think the reality of it is, Dan, until you get to break even, there is almost nothing to discuss as far as lowering cost. I mean, because that wouldn't make sense, right? We're losing money now. We don't want to do anything that's going to lose more money.
Well, and it was mentioned earlier about a YMCA option. That was actually brought up to me by constituents asking why didn't we seek that option first. Did we? Because I know I'm new,
We did
so I
multiple
have...
times over the years.
Yeah.
It's a dead end every time we looked at it. When we looked at it 15 years ago, I believe, first of all, if anybody thinks the Y does anything for nothing, that's not correct. The Y is driven largely by philanthropy and underwriting by corporations and foundations and things like that. And Rolla doesn't have any of those, number one. Number two, I forget the exact amount. I want to say $500,000 or something.
$300,000.
$300,000 we would have to pay the Y day one just to possibly be interested.
Okay, thank you. These are the answers I didn't have when I was
Yeah.
asked these
But
questions.
the Y is not a good option for us, but it was looked at. But again, the idea is to make this accessible. So your other question was about Medicaid and Medicare. As it relates to the medical integration, I presume that's going to be correct, because some of those services are going to be backed with insurance coverage. So my guess is, John, correct me if I'm wrong, so if a person doesn't have insurance, whether that's Medicare or Medicaid would be the backstop as well.
And then I hope eventually for people who don't have insurance and who are still falling in that gap with Medicaid, that we will eventually have a sliding scale option as well.
Any other questions? Okay, so how do we want to handle the amended?
I can just read the ordinance and say as amended.
Okay.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of City of Rolla, Missouri to execute on behalf of the City of Rolla, Missouri, a management agreement between the City of Rolla, Missouri and Power Wellness Management LLC as amended.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
The motion made in second, roll call vote.
Who was the second?
I'm sorry?
Who was the second?
Matt.
And who made the motion?
Carolyn, I think, was the
Carolyn.
first one.
Okay, thank you. Ready for roll call?
Roll call.
Allen?
Yes.
Lyons?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Bolin?
Yes.
Schneider?
Yes.
Reuter?
Yes.
Muse?
Yes.
Florence?
Yay.
Eberly?
Yes.
Kraut?
Yes.
Schott?
Yes.
Higgins?
Yes.
12 ayes.
Moving on to new business, the first item is an ordinance to amend section 3016 regarding marijuana possession. The last, or 2 weeks ago, we asked for some guidance from council as to what kind of document we want to prepare to start that conversation, and that's what's in your packet. So, John?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So before you is that ordinance is directed at the last council meeting to remove the threat of jail time under our, I don't call it misdemeanor violation, an ordinance infraction. And so that's before you, as well as some blanks for fines and penalties. That was undetermined at the last council meeting. Of course, I think we understand at this point that there is a difference between a first-time offender and under 10 grams, and that is not subject to a jail time. It's subject to a $100 offense. Actually, it's a maximum not to exceed $100. And then other cases between under 35 grams, it can be up to $500 and/or 90 days in jail. And that can be for repetitive or multiple offenses, as long as you're under that 35 grams. Anything over 35 grams triggers a felony conviction, or at least a prosecution and consideration in the state court. As we've tried to draft this and give it a better understanding of what we're trying to achieve here, we do want to qualify that, of course, our ordinance exempts qualifying patients and qualifying primary caregivers under the medical marijuana provisions that were adopted by Missouri voters. So that is not subject to these provisions as they're laid out. So we're talking specifically about a criminal infraction under our ordinances. While the ordinance is drafted to remove the jail time, I do want to review, at least because I've had some council members ask specifically this, but what is the feedback from legal and law enforcement on the recommendation on whether to proceed with a change? And so we did reach out to the police department, the prosecutor, as well as legal, and we came up with 4 reasons why the existing ordinance has merit in its current condition. Number 1, it set fines, or legislatively set fines, eliminates the executive discretion of the elected prosecuting attorney who considers all relevant facts on each case. 2, the elimination of jail time or threat removes the ability to apply time served, which may be the preferred punishment over a monetary fine. Often the arrests have multiple charges, some of which may dictate jail time, and hence time served is an option in lieu of a fine. 3, the fines and punishment are intended to be a deterrent, as all infractions would be. Minimizing same without considering the specifics of each case generally does not deter illegal behavior. And 4th, if the city enacts minimum deterrence Officers may file the charges as misdemeanors in state court, which have higher fines and longer maximum jail time. Then prosecution shifts from municipal court to the state court. So with that, it's really an issue for City Council to discuss, and happy to answer any questions. No. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Chief, did you want to show the samples of the size? Yeah, I think it would help, because we have talked about what's 10 grams, what's 35 grams. I think a visual kind of expresses that a little bit.
Now understand, this is parsley.
Go ahead and do it, Chief, do it. Chief, just go ahead and do it from the podium so
Okay.
the public can see.
I didn't think it did, but it's as close as I could get and be legal. 10 grams. This is the amount that, nope, okay. Well, I would ask if anybody...
Hold on,
has any-
hold
we're
on,
not gonna
hold
do it.
on, hold on, hold on. We had this discussion a couple of weeks ago from the audience. Please extend to the speaker the courtesy to speak. Go ahead, Chief.
All right, with that being said, this may not be accurate, but it is accurate in comparison to each other, okay? So, say this is 10 grams. This is an ounce, which this used to be a felony amount until the law changed and made it 35 grams. This is 35 grams compared to the 10 grams. Quite a bit of difference. The 10 grams is smaller. 10 grams on a first offense obviously is an infraction. You can't be arrested for it, but you can get a ticket for it. The other ones, the felony amount, you know, if you get caught with 35 grams or just over 35 grams, it's a felony. We don't really have a choice on that matter as far as law enforcement goes.
Chief, what about the market value of those three quantities?
Well, I spoke to my narcotics people for that, and they said that, and I asked about an ounce, and they said you can get an ounce of brickweed, used to call it ditchweed back in the day, they said for about $80. It's kind of useless. And they said marijuana now has a lot of different qualities, and when you're talking the highest quality, you're talking $20 a gram. So it can go up
$400 or $500 an ounce.
substantially. But they said on the average, the narcotics unit is paying right now about $300 for an ounce.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's open it up for discussion. We'll start on the right, give everybody a chance, because this is a relevant topic. No, I'm gonna just go around to everybody and give everybody a chance to speak. Rachel?
Okay, sure. Really, in looking at this and sort of thinking over the questions this raises and sort of hearing all of the different arguments, right? Because, you know, I do think it's important to respect that, you know, legislatively, prosecutorial discretion is a real thing and a power given. I am kind of concerned about some of the arguments here. For instance, setting fines doesn't consider all relevant facts of the case, although it sounds like when Mr. Neckerman talked to us, he said that it's the same fine every time. He always asks for $100, so that doesn't seem to be what's happening on the ground. The elimination of jail time removes the ability to apply time served, although, as we noted from our statistics, it seems like that's not particularly as much of a thing. I mean, I'm particularly most concerned with the number 4, which I think is a genuine and legitimate question. If our goal here is that we want to establish that we don't think this is as serious an offense or that it doesn't merit jail time, say, then we don't want to put people in a worse situation by reducing it all so low that the officers go ahead and send it to state court. So I'm very comfortable saying removing the jail time on this, because it seems like that's not a practice that's often done here. It seems like that it's rare that it would actually hurt, and it might help the community feel just a little bit better.
Okay, I'm going to just take a stop here. So the people that are watching at home through the internet, between the distance of microphones. David, I'm looking at you, and Rachel, plus the mask. So please, everyone that speaks, put this right in front of you.
Okay.
Okay.
Should I just sum up again with the microphone in front of me?
I think your peers heard it.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay. Terry?
I concur with Rachel.
Okay. Matthew?
You know, I think one thing that bothers me about what we've suggested as possible amendments is there's nothing really here to change behavior. There's nothing that really addresses what all these people have talked about, and that is getting legal. Like, this is a medicine and that sort of thing. And so I don't know that anything that we've suggested here will change any of that. It won't help people get treatment, won't help people get legal, if that's what their need is. And I do have concern about not having the ability of prosecutorial discretion, although obviously I don't think it's being utilized except to give a maximum fine. Although I'm glad to hear it's not being used for jail time. I do think that there is a problem with incarcerating people for low levels of marijuana in this day and age, where there clearly is accepted medical use for it. And so I wouldn't be opposed to removing the jail time. Again, I think that this doesn't do really a whole lot to address the bigger concern I have, which is getting people legal who need to be legal. I wouldn't mind seeing something more to address that, such as a portion of the fine being used to, in some manner, to address that issue. Because right now I think the fine's just going into our coffers, which we should be trying to assist people in getting legal or getting treatment. And we're not doing that with any of this. So that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Ann? Ann, mute. Ann, you're on mute. Ann, you got to take your mic off mute.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't quite clearly understand. Was that Carolyn that was speaking earlier? Rachel?
It was Rachel. We're going around the room starting from Ward 1.
There's some of that I couldn't understand. Thinking John just spoke, right? John Mush?
No.
That was Matthew.
Was that Matthew?
That was Matthew.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I think the court, I think our prosecuting attorney should have some discretion, and based on the prior history, I think there's merit to, on small first-time offenders. The state, it's against the law. 35 grams or more is against the law. The state, I believe. So I'm willing to leave it as it is right now and proceed getting more people medically approved for marijuana, and then eliminating the misdemeanor occurrence for first-time offenders with small doses, 10 grams or less.
Lister?
I guess I have to agree with my colleague in the sense that it's not really addressing the issues that we think we're addressing this. I have no problem with doing it. I don't think that our city has abused it, but I have no problem with removing the jail time associated with this. But again, it's not really addressing the issues that we want to address with this, I think. And so it'll make someone feel good in the general direction, but I don't really see where it's going to have a really big impact. But I don't have a problem with that. First-time offenders, I agree with my colleagues that the first-time offenders, slow them out. Yeah, jail time being removed, I have no I'm in agreement with that. That sounds reasonable to me.
Thank you. David?
Just a couple things. I agree with pretty much what everybody's saying also. I do think the jail time's a problem. Getting rid of that should be a first priority, but like you said, we're not really getting hitting the underlying issue here. What I did want to mention is if our worry, the only one of these that seems really relevant of our worries that we're talking about, to me seems like that our officers may send send some of these charges to state court. And so I think eliminating the jail time and bringing down the fines to something in the range of 50 for a first time and 100 for a second. To be honest, if the idea is to try to keep it in the city and the city having part of it and not go to state, then I think bringing them down along with would be a smart part of that. The other thing I wanted to mention is I know there's a couple other folks that are scheduled to speak under citizen comments, and I know that's the time that they're set for. I know that there's two folks that had mentioned to me a couple issues that could tie into what we're speaking with, so I was just going to mention that if it makes sense to have them speak after we're all done, that could be useful. One, I think, was going to address what Matthew brought up about being able to get cards and how that might tie into our justice system and the ability to do that. And I think the other one was going to talk about another option that would help us clarify how important we want to make this particular issue for our police versus other more pertinent issues like opioids. Obviously, anytime an officer spends on this, whether that be the actual arrest, the writing of the ticket, the having to go to court, that's priorities that they're not on. So there's those two discussions. I just wanted to mention that maybe it makes sense to have them talk now. If not, they'll have a chance later, but it seems relevant, so thank you.
Yeah. David, I'd rather not open it up to the floor, so
Right.
I'm assuming you know with this position. Can you articulate?
I can't, so I think it's the expert that I'd like to have speak on that. I do think the topic was deprioritization for one person. That's just one person. The only other second person I know was about working with the courts to get people their cards. It just seems like those two topics could be relevant, but I know that there's a whole bunch more council folks to speak, so.
Okay, Jody?
So my personal view is that I agree with most of my colleagues that it seems that jail might be a little harsh for first-time offenders. However, when I walk through that door and sit in this seat, I'm not only speaking for myself, I'm speaking for all the people that are in Ward 4. And although I have not done a statistically valid survey of everyone in Ward 4, I do think that the majority of folks in Ward 4 probably would be for keeping this ordinance as it is and not making any of the changes. I'm concerned, kind of like Matthew, that the changes that we're proposing aren't really addressing the issue that's needed. I would kind of like to see our fines maybe kept as is, but have a proportion of those used for treatment and getting some more medical cards to the folks who need it and can't afford it. So, you know, again, I think that the jail time is maybe something that we're doing that doesn't mean as much as what it sounds like it means. And it concerns me that we are maybe making our officers, putting them in a position that would have them take those charges to the state court rather than keeping them here in the city. So, that's my...
John?
Yeah, I think I'm going to follow along a lot of what Jody said. You know, for one, when did we last amend this ordinance? A year ago?
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, a year ago.
No, I meant.
Because of medical marijuana, we amended it.
Medical marijuana.
2 years ago?
A year ago.
Year and a half ago?
Yeah.
And what we've got on the books now was sufficient then. I voted for what we have now. I think most of the council did. So in a year and a half, we're wanting to amend what we just amended recently. The jail time is, like Jody said, I think it sounds good, but I think I don't think they use it anyway, and if they do, they use it as time served. So I hate to take that away as an option. I'm content to leave it the way it is. I would like to see part of the fine. I would like to see the fine left at $100, but I agree with everybody. I think the part of the fine needs to be used for either treatment or what do you guys send? Cards?
Getting your medical.
Yeah, someone can't afford it or something. So
Is that possible to do?
Administratively, I don't even know if that's possible.
Or what if it went to like the crisis intervention team, something like that, where at least it's going to address the problems in the community and not just general revenue?
We have an expert here who can speak on it.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really hard to do any of this tonight, if that's what you want to do. So we may have to...
I'm in no hurry.
Okay.
It's the first reading anyway, right?
No, it's the final reading.
No,
Okay,
it says
Okay,
first
it says
reading on
final.
on the agenda.
It says final on the agenda.
Oh, on the agenda.
Okay, but either way. So one of the things that I think the council's going to have to sort out is you have people that need and qualify for medical marijuana, and that's where the issue of the card comes in. But you have another populace out there that, saying it like it is, have a substance abuse problem. And we can debate it, I guess. There's pros and cons, or for and against, but you clearly have, at least some people believe, that it is part of a gateway path. Alcohol to this, to that. Recognizing that there are also people that use it as a step down from opioids down. So it's both cases. So the question that I think you're going to have to sort out, if you want a portion of the fines to go to something, then it really has to go to both. It has to address the substance abusers, have substance abuse problems, as well as those that have a medical condition that don't quite have enough money for the card.
Well, that's what I'm suggesting. That's what I think we need to be doing, and whether that is, direct funding or through a more alternative means, like through the crisis intervention team, where they just have additional funding that now they can look at addressing some of these concerns. So
I'm hesitant to do that, though, Matthew, because at some point, are we going to start changing the mission of the crisis intervention team? And now we're going to sit there and have them divvy out money, so...
I'm just using that as an
As an
example.
example.
I'm not suggesting that that's where it should go. I'm just saying that is an organization that exists that's already combating drug use in our community.
And homeless and everything
Well,
else, so...
yes, it's not just one issue, but...
Okay, so let's stay with the theme. Let me finish with, let's go down to Carolyn first, and then we'll circle back.
I agree basically with Jody and John. I'm totally against lowering the fine because based on the price of what these people are paying for the marijuana, that's nothing. That's a pittance. Even the $100. I mean, if they're paying that kind of money, doesn't matter where they get it. Anyway, the other thing, the jail time, I've known some people that, the jail time really makes an effect on them even that first time. Others it doesn't, so that's kind of inconsequential. Like John said, I think a lot of the jail time is basically time served anyway while they're waiting, so it's not a big enough deal. To me, the biggest part of all of this is the legality of it. There's still a lot of illegal. The portion, I know with the card, you've got this amount of illegal marijuana, but that's not what all the discussion's about, and marijuana is illegal, so, I'm
Okay, Marie?
So, a couple of things. To John's point, when we last amended the ordinance, we added the idea that you could pay the ticket without a court fee or without a court appearance. And we've now taken that away, and so I think that's why we're revisiting this, because we've made it now more punitive. You have to go to court, and so we're looking for a way to find that original intent, at least last year when we looked at this, and make it less punitive. Because in our discussion as council at that time, we said for these first-time, small amount offenders, we felt that we wanted to strike a good balance in how punitive the fees and fines and punishments were. I think the argument that jail time might be preferred is only made from one side of the argument, from this side, from the prosecutorial side. I specifically, several meetings ago, asked for community feedback about whether or not that position resonated with people who are actually being affected by this punishment. And I did not hear from a single person in the, I'm going to say, couple of dozen people that I have discussed this with since, not one person that might be the one actually facing the jail time agreed that they would like time served to be an option. They would prefer to find money than to have their freedom taken away. So, just want to throw that out there. And as far as it's not being done anyway, so why does it matter? Mr. Neckerman may be a very benevolent man, but he is an elected official, and we don't know who's going to follow him. So again, if we want to keep with the intent of the council when we first discussed this, at least in my term, to make it a good balance between, yes, being punitive, but not overly punitive for these small amounts and first-time offenders, I would like to see the jail time removed.
Can I make a comment real fast, just because I think it's important? Just because we remove jail time, just keep in mind, these people spending time in jail, it's generally for failing to appear, so it's really more of a contempt of court. That probably won't go away as a result of us removing jail time. So those people will still go to jail if they don't appear in court. They just now won't have the option of saying, well, I spent 2 days in jail, time served, done. They'll just go to jail, then they'll still pay the fine. So just kind of, I don't know if maybe you guys understood that, but if not.
Yeah, I understand. These people expressly said to me in my communication that they would prefer not to go to jail, not to use time served. Money is better to find than to be locked up.
Thank you, Marie. PM?
I also agree with Marie. That's been the consensus I have gotten from people I have talked with as well. I also agree with Matthew, especially with regards to involving CIT. And Dave, I thought you brought up a good point as well, that we should listen to what's coming up about deprioritization. You brought up how the police do not have to send this to the state level. They can make that choice, and they can choose not to. They could deprioritize, so thank you for bringing that up. Also, I think there was some confusion on the first page here. It does say first reading, and then on this page it does say final reading, so just to clear that up for everybody. John, to your point about it being a year ago, times change. We have new people on here. We have people who are actually coming to the meetings and speaking more often. Times change, things change, and we need to listen to the people. And so back to what Marie said, we really need to listen to the people that this is impacting. We don't need to have jail time, especially not during a pandemic. And we do need to make it clear to people that if you admit guilt and pay a fine, you have now set yourself up for a potential second offense, potential felonies. So what I would be more interested in doing is moving towards, if you get charged, if you have a card, the charge automatically dropping. If you can get a card within, say, 30 days of getting your charge, why not just have it dropped? Why are we even punishing people over it? It's silly. We need to refocus our efforts on deadly drugs, and our community has seen that affect people. We have lost our community members to deadly drugs, and we are wasting our time and our energy on this. It's ridiculous. We need to listen to our community.
Please, you let one speaker at a time.
And to the point about that this is illegal, how many unjust laws in the United States history have we gotten rid of because they're unjust? How many times in United States history, and that's ignoring world history, but United States history, have we had to admit that we are wrong, that we messed up, that we didn't get it right, that our laws were unjust? When we prosecute people, when we send them to prison, we forget, maybe some people forget, the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution has a loophole for slavery. We are imprisoning people for a plant so that we can have some free or some cheap labor. This needs to end. We need to be a community that wants to end this, and we need to actually listen to our community members coming to us, and not people up here who have never dealt with jail, who have never had to deal with that kind of hardship. We need to listen to the people who are, because the people who are affected and impacted by problems, who are closest to those issues, they need to be closest to the solutions, and we need to listen. That's all. Thank you.
So,
Miss Christine, by the way.
oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Christine, go ahead.
Just overall, I can see everybody's point. I'm okay with letting the jail time go for the lower amount. I did have a question for Deanne, though, because she said, you know, well, what if we, I'm not sure if you said reduce the amount or left it at $100, but that it could be forgiven if they get a card within 30 days. Well, if they haven't been able to get a card up to this point when they're given a ticket, then how are they going to be able to get it in 30 days?
Rolla Cannabis Action Network has offered to do that, from what I understand. I could be wrong. I believe they'll be giving a presentation. Sorry to interrupt you.
So that's my concern with, you know, if that could work, that would be great. But my concern is if they haven't been able to get it to this point, you know, is it a function of not being able to come up with the money, not having the ability to find the right person, the right doctor to get them a legal card, you know, and maybe CAM can help with that. And then it becomes a moot point at that point, whether the ticket is $100 or not, if we have an organization that's helping people get legal ahead of time, so they don't have to worry about this at all.
I have a question along that line. It seems like, so there's a legal path for people that need medical marijuana, okay? But it almost sounds like they're not going to do anything until they get caught. And then they get caught, and then we're going to give them 30 days to go get the damn card that they should have got to begin with. So my question is, why would we do that if there is a legal pathway for those that need it, not people that are on substance abuse, but there's a pathway to get the card with pecan or without pecan, whatever. Why don't people just do that? It's almost like they get caught and, oops, I want to go get a card. Let me out of jail free.
As someone who, having been in graduate school about 5 years ago, when you're on a limited income, say making, you know, at the time I made $1,580 a month living in Austin, Texas, paid for 9 months of the year. Right, on a fixed income, you know, the expense of what, $100 for the doctor's visit, $50 for the thing, right? Like, you know, if you have to eat, you have to pay, you know, your insurance.
But Rachel, help me with this.
Yeah.
Somebody's willing to spend $300 for a bag, okay?
Mm-hmm.
To be legal.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't want to spend the money to be legal until they get caught, and then the rest of us are both supposed to say, oh, I'm going to feel sorry for you, we'll find a way for you to go get the card.
Yeah.
Get the damn card. And I don't understand that argument.
I mean, to take it into a different direction, right? Like, you know, it might be the people who, you know, their plates are due, they let their plates expire because, you know, time and money or whatever getting there. Then they're pulled over, and then they go and get their plates fixed because, well, now it's an emergency, now I have to get it done, right? And sort of that precarity of balancing your finances.
But you've had a year and a half to get your card. Am I correct? Am I correct? Is it a year and a half now? Okay, so.
You might have been broke for a year and a half. I mean, I know, once again, all of us.
Why are you going to have, okay.
I see a lot of broke people walking around with $800 iPhones and buying $300 bag of pot, but they can't spend $100 for the card?
Can I say something, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor and John, I met with you last week. Thank you for meeting with me, and thank you for asking me to explain my pronouns and such to you. Thank you for sharing personal stories with me. I shared those with you too. I grew up in poverty. I am one of those people whose mother had to choose between buying food and getting a driver's license. That's my reality. And when your bills are piling up because you have children, because you have medical debt, because this country will not give us health care, because you have medical, on top of medical debt, you have education debt. If you don't have a car, or you do have a car, but it's just broken down and you can't get it to run, how are you supposed to make money? How are you supposed to get to a job so you can make money, so you can work? And God forbid somebody in the midst of all of that have medicine, whether somebody gave it to them, and whether somebody bought it for less than $300. You keep talking about $300. Not everything's $300. Let's be clear on that. And for the phone, this was given to me. This was a gift. And everything given to me whenever I was a child was a hand-me-down. It was given to me by my grandparents. It was given to me by family friends. I would have gone nowhere in sports and music had it not been for friends' parents feeling sorry enough for me. But oh, they're good enough. They look good enough. I'm privileged in so many ways. But to grow up poor and to know it, when all your friends around you live in mansions, I cleaned their houses for a living. Do you know what that is? Do you, any of you up here, know what it is to live in abject poverty, to have sewage run back into your house, to have to run the bath water and fill it up because you're not going to have water, to turn the stove on so you can have heat, to sleep with newspapers so you can be warm? Does anybody up here know what that is? And to do it year in, year out for your entire childhood. Do you know what that is? And do you know what it is to see your parents fall into mental illness, into deep depression, into addiction, to opioids, to meth, to heroin? Because I do. Do any of you? I lost my parents to this. They're still alive, but they're not up here anymore. Do any of you know what that is? If my parents could have had access to this, I wish, because I wish I would have known what it was like to grow up in a better way. But I'll never know that. And kids out here, they deserve to know that. They deserve to know that. And I will not sit up here and listen to you talk about people in poverty like this. I will not.
I think you're misconstrued.
No, I'm not. This was given to me. You say these people in poverty, they have a cell phone. God forbid. Have you been homeless? I have. I lived out of my car, and if I hadn't had a cell phone to contact people, how am I going to do my laundry? How am I going to get anywhere? How am I going to get gas money to get to my job so that I can figure out how I'm going to pay rent in Rolla, Missouri? I was homeless as an S&T student. Do you know what that is like? Do you know how humiliating it is to hear people out here talk about homeless people? God forbid I had a phone so I could call people for help and get to work and learn how to figure it all out because I had no help. Do you know what it's like to have no help through college? To have no one? To have nothing like that? Do you know what it's like to have to ask for help like that? Do you really? For a phone? And do you know how embarrassing it is? It is embarrassing. It is humiliating to have to ask people for help like that, for your basic human needs. And if you think this isn't a need in our century, I don't know what world you're living in. People have to be able to communicate so that they can get a job. If you go fill out a job application, they want to know your address. Well, I didn't have one of those for a hot second. If I didn't have a phone number, how are they going to call me back so that I could come in for an interview? If my clothes are dirty, are they even going to call me back? No. This is a cycle of poverty, and asking questions like, why do they have a phone? No, I am not overstating it. You said it.
This might be why people can't afford their card.
I said it. Your situation, and I'm sure there's others that are like you.
Yes, I've met several of them here, and I'll have you.
Not everybody that is buying pot, that's getting caught, is in that position either. You know, at the end of the day, there are medical users. I get it. But there's a whole hell of a lot of people out there that just want to get high. And now what we're saying is, you got caught, and now you start to talk about the medical need, and now you need the card. That's the point that I'm making. We're trying to, this whole effort, we spent weeks talking about this, is trying to find some creative way to make something legal that is not in the state of Missouri. That's the fact. We can keep talking for month after month after month. That is a reality check. Deprioritization, decriminalization, sanctuary cities is all coming back to the same thing. There's a group of people that are trying to make it legal. I get it. Go to Jeff City and get it legal. But I don't think you can use the city ordinances to do that. That's my point. So, council, there's a couple ways you can go. You can have a first reading, as is. You could, there seems to be some consensus on the jail issue. You can go down that particular path if you want. The only thing that I ask is if you want to go down that path on use of that fine money for some other purpose of getting cards, treatment, whatever, that's a complicated path. Do not try to do that here tonight, and do not try to do that on the second reading. That is complicated. I think that has to be thought out every which way but Sunday. But I would not suggest you do that on the fly. David?
I agree that we shouldn't rush it, and I think that having time for everyone to speak is important. I just want to mention again, I don't think that opening a forum for all discussion of anything is important right now, but I know that we have two experts, one talking specifically about what you just said about how we do the fine structure if somebody wants to get their card, and the other one, like I said, about how we prioritize things. It seems like now would be a relevant time, but I understand if we need to wait till citizen comments, that's what it is, but it seems relevant now for those two speakers.
Well, this is only first reading, so...
But then we could kind of hash this out before we then go down, we don't get to the second reading till next time, and we're done with this then.
David,
I doubt that you will be done with it in 2 weeks. I mean, as far as how to use the money, that's my point. If you're talking about adjusting the fine, or you're talking about the jail time, I think that's really yes or no, black and white.
Yeah.
But if you want to put another system out there, that's a whole different
It may not need to involve us as much as you think, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not the expert on it.
Okay, Erlen?
Well, David, just from the legal side of things, I think I've heard the council say something similar on many occasions. If the mayor were to entertain your request and put citizen comments, or what would typically be citizen comments, out of order, because you have identified people you believe to be an expert.
I totally understand.
Then what about the other people who think they're an expert on something? And then every meeting it's going to be, you let that person talk and you didn't let me talk. That's why the agenda, we try to keep it as standard or uniform as possible. And, you know, if after the citizen comments, that turns into something else. But I think when you start asking to take things out of order because you believe someone's an expert, it's going to become a problem.
You're right, and I think actually the frustration I've got, you hit all the right points. I think the frustration I have is that I've tried through the right channels with the agenda, how do things get on the agenda, how do I get somebody on an agenda in a certain space to speak before we make decisions, whatever. No, 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 bottom agenda, bottom agenda, bottom agenda. So, bottom agenda, we got it, we'll wait for it.
That's not what I said, David, but...
No, I know it's not what you said, but I'm clarifying, that's what I've been told, not you told me, but that's what I've been told from this body, that no, I can't set anybody else in any other place. There can't be, certain things can be special presentations, but other ones can't, and I still don't understand it, but I understand that these people have to wait. That's fine.
Hey, let me clarify. What is an expert in your mind that you want to have speak may very well be an expert, but that person is playing to your playbook. In other words, that is a position that you want to advocate, so you bring in an expert.
Do you know any of those people?
It doesn't matter, David. This thing's as plain as a nose on your face. So all I'm saying is this body has to think and act objectively. So if you want to bring an expert to talk about that position that you're advocating, then there has to be other experts that come in with counter positions. And then the county, and then the body could decide objectively.
So when you bring someone forth, you do that? You bring 2 or 3 people with counter...
It depends on the subject.
Okay.
This subject is, this subject is emotional.
Right.
It involves emotion, it involves I won't even say a small group of people, but it's an emotional issue, it's got legal... I did say it. You know what? I'll defend it. I'll defend what I just said.
I don't think it's a small group of people.
And I think
Difference there.
Okay, that's fine. It's got legal implications and so on and so forth. So this one has to be vetted.
Sure.
Rachel?
Just to kind of switch tracks a little bit here, because, you know, as you pointed out, there seems to be some consensus around potentially removing jail time, but there also seems to be some consensus around this other aspect that, as you pointed out, we have to think through probably pretty carefully how you would formulate such a circumstance where some of the fine money could be diverted for treatment and or helping people get cards. So, as a somewhat procedural question, perhaps, like, what would be the situation if we said, well, that's something we're interested in seeing worked on. We understand it might take more than a couple meetings for that to happen. Like, would that be a, like, tabling? Would it be postponing it? Like, or would we just kind of pull this and come back with a different revised ordinance? Or
Well, I don't think you want to table a topic because that can procedurally and through parliamentary procedure that can not get the result that you want or are looking for. From what I'm hearing, and I don't want to compare it to anything, I don't think there's necessarily anything comparable to it. I think you're looking at 2 different options.
Mm-hmm.
Our advice is that I think you might have challenges if you try to create an ordinance that says the prosecutor, for all the reasons we've talked about before, and also because of the statutes that govern municipalities and how they have to write their ordinances or what power they have, how far that extends to write ordinances. I don't know that, or I don't necessarily believe or recommend that making that an option or a requirement of the ordinance as far as the punishment, that the prosecutor has to dismiss it if, and you guys aren't really talking about that today, that was more of 2 weeks ago, trying to legislate that it must be dismissed if you get your medical marijuana license. I don't believe that's really the right way to do it by putting it in the ordinance. So what I'm hearing is more like, what can we do to make that feasible, where it's either a fund that's created, and I'm not sure if Stephanie or John or anybody need to weigh in on how administratively a new fund can be created, but I think that's sounding more to me like a resolution that the council, if they've made a decision or as a whole or a majority has decided they want to pursue that, that would be more in the terms of maybe something that is the request or a resolution is all I can really think of at this point. I'm not sure
Karen, let me ask
fund-wise how that
you a
can
question. Let's go back to the prosecutor.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't the prosecutor have enough discretion? So let's say somebody comes in and let's just hypothetically say, it's a 16-year-old, they got caught with some marijuana, this is not a medical issue. Does the prosecutor have the wherewithal to make as part of the resolution, okay, Johnny, you have to go and get some counseling or something like that. So instead of paying a $100 fine, Johnny, go down and get your counseling and come back and report in 3 months or something.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of cases statewide and also in municipalities where a prosecutor and or with, cooperation with the court or anything like that can make recommendations for what might be a deferment program or like a different type of probation or something like that. I don't think my general impression is that to legislate that as an ordinance that he has to do it under these circumstances, to me, I don't recommend, and I think it might be challengeable as the legislature, the legislative branch, is kind of overstepping into a different branch at that point. However, I do think it's a tool that Brad or any prosecutor has But that's why I'm saying is that if it's the consensus of the group to do that, to me, it's more like an administrative thing that we're going to set this fund up. And that's what we want it to be used for, and that's the recommendation we want to make. But I still believe that it's best to leave the discretion to the elected official, because just like you all, he's an elected official. And, so, I don't know if that answers your question.
It answered mine, but I don't know we got an answer to Rachel's question.
Did that answer your question, Rachel?
May I say something?
Yes, Ann?
Yeah. Hey. Yeah, as a council, we need to, we represent all the people, okay? And individuals and groups have different, there's all kinds of different rights that people feel that, their independence is offset, so on and so forth. We have to look at all our people. The discretion of that the prosecutor has in a municipal court, because from I understand, we as a council can enact ordinance or resolutions. Those things, if the prosecutor may know someone to be habitual, they may be able to work with somebody on a first-time offense. But if you have, you said, we haven't talked about this, but you have a small possession person that comes up and has several joints rolled or some things that are packaged that look like that was really, the officer felt in his head that, hey, this guy was going to distribute. That's a different degree of small-time offense possession. And I don't think we can take the discretion and the professional experience that these guys have had to override those decisions. I think that Nickerman will, and what he said, I think I can believe what he said, that he doesn't really, there's no jail time typically, but to it would be the issues that we're dealing with too. And Dan, I heard you, I feel for you, and for people who have had the hardships that you have had in your life, and certainly we all have come from different backgrounds and have different histories. But all those things, really, that's a different arena right now. We can't make laws based on people's abject poverty in a city council room talking about an ordinance on small possession. I mean, it all flows, but it's just, we need to stick to what we need to stick to right now. And I think we need to move on.
So, Carolyn, everything that you've heard, what are the procedural options tonight for the council?
With what's drafted here tonight, that my thought was that if we've got it proposed here that imprisonment for a period of not exceeding 90 days or by both fine and imprisonment be removed, that currently it says $500, and so if that's for any offense for 35 and under, and then for 10 and under with a first offense, it's whether or not it's only 100 now, and it's whether you want to amend any of those two amounts. So as it's proposed right now, before I think we could read this, you need to insert a number for the fine, both for 35 and under or multiple 10 and under offenses, and for 10 and under for a first offense. You got to plug those numbers in, basically, if you want this to be a first reading. If you don't want to change that amount, I mean, basically you need to decide that amount. It already has removed the jail that you guys talked about last time. It's already removed that. So right now we're talking about taking out the jail, and what is the fine going to be, or the fines going to be on those two different levels. And if you want to start adding other things, such as other requirements of the prosecutor or other expectations of what is and is not allowed, that's where we're branching into that other area of, I'm not sure that you really want to do that or can do that. And then if you want to look into a third option of what else can we do, such as, I'll point at Matt Crowell, of the suggestion of, is there another way we can look to address the problem? I don't think I heard anyone say we should, well, no, I don't want to say that. To have an ordinance, it seemed like the consensus thought you still needed an ordinance. It's just, what is the punishment going to be? And my recommendation is that the punishment needs to be jail or no jail, fine or no fine, or how much fine. And then this other issue of what other options do we have is something we need to come back with and talk about how to go about doing that. Because if you legislate into punishment these other options, I think it goes outside the scope of what is expected both statutorily and also really steps on the toes of the other elected officials who were elected for the purpose of enforcing these ordinances. You all, I'll leave it at that.
So, Carolyn, if we decided that we wanted to explore some of those other things in terms of what to do with the fines and what we legally could request, require, what have you.
That doesn't have to be done tonight.
But that might sway what we think we want to put for the amount of the fine, depending on what we could do with it. So is there a way to not do something with this tonight?
Sure.
At all?
We don't have to do anything with it.
I move that we pass this to another time where we can have a discussion about a resolution, maybe separate from this, but that addresses what Jody was just suggesting, and what I'm suggesting, where that fine money goes. Because that would impact my decision too, as to whether or not I thought a $100 fine might be appropriate, because I know a big chunk of that's going to go to helping people.
Yeah.
Or a $10 fine that someone else shouted out, because we're not doing anything with that money, but, you know, putting it in general revenue.
Yeah. I would also like to second what Jody and Matt have said, and I'm very sympathetic, Carolyn, to the idea that whatever we do, we want to do it right. We want to do something that stands up in court, that isn't going to be inconsistent with Missouri law. So I'm happy to sort of have some solutions there proposed for us to look at.
What is council's expected time frame? And if you think it's 2 weeks, I think you're crazy. So is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? I mean, to explore the options from experts on both sides and putting a system in. I'm assuming we don't want to lose money, right? So if it costs $100 to manage the system and you're only getting $50 in, then that doesn't make sense either. So there's going to be interaction with city staff and the prosecutor and law enforcement, so on and so forth. So what is the expectation on time if you're asking us to go explore these things? All right?
So just the obvious question that I think I know the answer to, can any ordinance be changed at any time? Is there any reason why we can't do this now and that later?
No
So
reason
that we
you can't
don't
do
have to
that.
wait to do what we can
Right.
now and then figure out what all of the complicated stuff is, 3 months, 6 months, whatever that looks like.
Make a motion.
Yeah, I think the reason why I would like to move or put this aside now is because the amount of the fine would be, at least in my mind, would be somewhat based upon where that money's going.
The other thing you could do is just deal with the jail time. I mean, that seemed, if you go back to what we've heard from day one, the jail time was the issue, more so than $100 or $50. So you could go down the path, the original intent is take the jail off, don't do anything with the fines until you have an option to consider with those fines.
We just need to, because we've
Right.
removed them, it needs to be, what it says now, it's 500, and then
It would stay the
first
same as
offense,
what-
it would stay the same, one.
It would stay the same. So you could get the jail time issue off the table, if that's what you wanted to do.
And then it would be enacted now, so
Well,
It's a first reading.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
So is there a way to ask before we officially vote if that is a reasonable compromise that we can, as a somewhat divided council, agree is a good balance?
Well, it's just a first reading, too. so,
Okay.
Yeah, just a reading.
Okay, so could we take a straw poll, is what she's asking? Is that legal?
Just make the
I think you just make the motion. I think you guys are all I think you make the motion.
But did Matthew make a motion?
I thought he did.
I made a motion to
Motion
move
was
this
passed.
to another date.
So there was a second on that, and
So move the whole thing.
Right, until
that's a
such time as we've addressed all the
Okay,
concerns.
so that's a set aside. Is that what you're saying that is?
no, I think you vote on I think you have to vote because there's a motion and a second, so you vote on that.
But what is the motion specifically?
Was to pass it
Yes,
to
to-
another time, so not to do anything tonight. And if
Okay.
that is not what everybody wants to do, then you know what to do when you vote.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second
Does this include a time frame?
to not do anything tonight.
No, it's just to pass it to not do anything tonight. That's what Matt.
That's what the motion was. And the second was who?
I thought, right? I thought it was
Rachel?
Rachel. I thought you did. I'm sorry if I
didn't
heard all.
realize
thought
that
I
was
heard.
I didn't realize we stepped into formal motions at that point.
Well, when I hear motion, I wait for a second.
Okay.
Well, I did make a motion, so if there's no second, whatever, but,
Okay, so restate the motion and see if there is a second.
okay. I move that we pass this ordinance to a future date as where at some point we've had a further discussion on the issues that we've discussed tonight and a better understanding of those options available to us.
Okay, is there a second to that? Okay, so it doesn't go anywhere.
So is there another motion?
I would like to make a motion that we adopt the ordinance striking the jail time and leaving the fines as is until a later date for discussion of other options.
I second that, Kenneth.
Can I have a discussion of that?
Yes, hold on. There is a second?
Second.
Okay. Counsel, David?
So my question is, if we go ahead and make this change, would be a second reading at the next meeting, what mechanism do we have to make sure we have the continued discussion that Matthew's talking about?
Yeah.
So that we change the thing that Marie's saying is the first step she's been hearing from her constituents, but we're able to continue the conversation to potentially include that discussion point, which I do think needs to happen about the other aspects of it. How does that work that we would
Well,
make that happen?
council has given us that direction.
Okay.
By virtue of that motion and this discussion,
Okay.
we would be charged with going and researching it.
But if the question is, well, how you be ensured that it gets addressed by motion? I mean, the council
So,
ultimately
yeah,
dictates.
how would we then set something to be on a future agenda to discuss it, I guess? Because I obviously want you
Then
to
that
be
needs
able
to
to.
be a motion, but I wouldn't do it in the middle of her
Okay.
motion.
I'd like the motion later when the chance is
Okay.
available. You just let me know when I'm supposed to do that.
All right.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to amend what's in front of you, striking jail time, but keeping the fines as they currently are.
Yes.
Okay. Roll call vote on that.
Yes.
Schott,
Yes.
Reuter,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
Murphy,
No.
Lyons,
Yes.
Bullen,
No.
Muse,
No.
Florence.
Yay.
Is that a no?
Because he,
That's a yay.
Thank you. Eberly,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
9 ayes and 3 nays.
Okay, so that was to amend this, then we have the first reading. And then we'll circle back to David's point.
An ordinance amending Section 30-16 of the Code of the City of Rolla, Missouri relating to marijuana possession as amended by motion.
Okay. Now, to David's point, if the council as a majority wants city staff to research, and you can rephrase this, so I'm just kicking it off, research methods to utilize any monies from fines for either treatment or acquisition of medical marijuana cards. Is that what you're asking us to do?
I think I would restate it. I think you're getting specific, and I guess what I'm asking is that we're going to get some more information tonight. I think we're all going to be hearing more from our constituents as well. I'd like to have an agenda topic where we're going to have potentially something we vote on next week. After that point, that we still have another forum, which would just be an agenda item to discuss The other possibilities, which is what you mentioned, is one of those. So whatever form it would take to discuss the issue as an agenda topic again, this particular, the other changes that could be made to it, other changes to it.
Okay, so I see this as Part A and Part B. Part A is if the majority of the council wants to put this on the agenda in 2 weeks, independent of this, 3 weeks, independent of this action,
Right.
to discuss other uses of the fine monies.
Right.
That would be step one. Step two, if there's some sort of consensus or direction that the body gives us after that, then we would go and do our research and come back with options.
Right, and the council, everybody on council could be doing their research so they could give input, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for. Everybody can give input,
Right.
especially our body.
Okay, so,
So I need to make a motion that we do that?
yeah, I think the first thing first, do the part that's A. Make a motion so that at the next regularly scheduled meeting, we have an agenda item that is to begin the discussions on how to use the fine money, I guess, is that?
If there are, yeah, to
If-
look into that.
right.
What, if any, options exist?
Right, so if you want to make that motion,
Make a motion to schedule an agenda item to discuss the use of fine money, as well as further discussion of options to go along with.
Okay.
Because we haven't heard
well
what is
said.
possible.
Well
So
said.
moved.
There's a second. Roll call vote.
Who made the second?
John?
I thought oh, yeah, sorry, second.
Roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Everly?
Yes.
Allen?
Yes.
Murphy?
No.
Bolin?
No.
Schneider?
Yes.
Reuter?
Yes.
Mush?
Yes.
Higgins?
Yes.
Lyons?
Yes.
Crowell?
Yes.
Schott?
Yes.
Florence?
Yes.
10 ayes and 2 nays.
Okay. Moving on. Next item is an ordinance approving a minor subdivision plat for the West Side Marketplace. Is Tom on?
No, I meant,
All right, hello everybody. First I wanted to say, just to introduce myself, because I believe there's several new city council members, and this is the first meeting I've been to since we haven't had any cases in quite a while, so hello. So what we have is a minor subdivision. It's also a final plat, because we know how to do a preliminary plat with a minor subdivision. This one is pretty weird unusual for 3 reasons. First reason, one of the applicants, co-applicants on this application is the City of Rolla, because the City of Rolla owns a part of the property involved. Second reason is because City of Rolla is actually under contract to sell a portion of property. That's why this minor subdivision is occurring. And third reason we'll come to in just right now. The outline in red shows the entire properties involved. And I've got a blue square that shows that's kind of the dividing line for the 2 lots that are proposed. Basically, there are 2 properties now. There'll be 2 properties when this is all said and done. What's happening is the City of Rolla is selling these 2 triangles.
Yeah, move the cursor over here.
2 triangles, yeah, there we go. To the other co-applicant, Stephen Dunaway. This will basically square up his properties. You can see it's kind of parallelogram, and this will make a square. The other thing that's weird, the green lines that you see on there, those, on one hand, those help highlight the current property boundaries, but also those are the city limits boundary. So this other property is outside the city limits. These 2 triangles would still be inside the city limits. So when this is all said and done, Mr. Dunaway's property will consist of 1 platted lot, but with the city limit lines, cutting it into a portion, into two other portions, but we consider one platted lot. The zoning is also, would be a little strange, because the majority of the property, the lot that the city owns now is Zone C3, which is the Highway Commercial District. Mr. Dunaway's property, of course, since it's not in the city limits, doesn't have a zoning district. So when this is all said and done, you'll have those two triangles, which would still be zoned C3, Highway Commercial. Now, these two triangles, I understand it's a little strange. There was some other options that were kind of tossed out there. One option would be to annex his entire property into the city limits so that the entire property could be rezoned. It'll be, makes sense that way. Stephen Dunaway is not too interested in that right now, and in addition, he's not served by any city utilities, and so it's just not something he was too interested in. The other thing was tossed out was, well, what about just de-annexing these two triangles so that it'll be just one way or the other? And anyway, those were examined, but this was brought forth as the easiest way to just make this happen, because these two triangles, one of them is just over 5,000 square feet, and one of them is like 3,000 square feet. They aren't very big, and their terrain, it's very steep, so it'd be very difficult to build anything across it, so in this case, it's not really going to be much of a problem. If it were to become a problem in the future, we could do something to address that. This is the plat. As I said, it just shows two lots. The Stephen Dunaway's lot 2 would be almost 3 acres, and lot 1's almost 20 acres the city would retain. Just in summary, all this does is changes the lot lines between these two lots. Lot 2, as I said, is partly within the city limits and would partly have commercial zoning and partly no zoning. But other than these weirdies, it appears to be in compliance with all the requirements. The Planning and Zoning Commission did take a look at this, and they did recommend approval with a vote of 7-0. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions for Tom? Thank you, Tom. First reading.
An ordinance to approve the minor subdivision final plat of West Side Marketplace 2, sub 20-02.
We do not have any claims or fiscal transactions tonight. Mayor, City Council comments, there's 2 on the agenda and 1 that I would like to add. The first is a motion to reappoint councilpersons Muse, Crow, and Schott to the Council Audit Committee.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
So moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Let's deal with the budget one first, and then we'll add to that. We've got the city budget coming up, but I asked John to put in there an additional presentation. And here are my reasons for doing that. Last spring, the council had a workshop to look at the 10-year projections as associated with the general fund. Some of the council persons were not here at the time, and that's a very important discussion that we had. Of course, that was preceding the ballot initiative for the use tax, but what we also did is made it very clear that the general fund, even with the use tax, has some structural issues as you come down in the next ensuing years. And for those of you that are new, we'd like to think that the city has a checkbook, but they really don't. They have multiple checkbooks, and money has to stay in certain silos. So the general fund, for a lot of reasons, is stressed and will continue to be stressed down the road, that needs a solution. So that's an important enough topic that rather than bury it into a 6-hour overall budget meeting and potentially lose some of that significance, or not have the time to really explain it to some of the new council persons, we'd like to have a separate session, a separate workshop, to just dust off that spring of 2019 presentation so that you can get a really good understanding of what that is and then how that fits in the overall city budget presentations, which you'll hear a week or 2 later. So with that, John?
Yeah, so as the mayor said, we're looking at a couple of dates, August 24th, 5:30, a 10-year forecast on the general fund. We'll do that in council chambers. It's a public meeting, but we'll focus on that. Usually we do a light dinner before that. And then on Monday, August 31st, will be the budget workshop. Again, council chambers, public meeting, and we should be able to get through it one night. If we have to, we reserve the opportunity to go into the second day to do the budget.
Okay, so before I go to other council persons, I'd like to talk about COVID a little bit, and just be patient with me, but some of you had some questions. Some of what we want to do is a little bit of an update. So let me start with Missouri S&T. This Saturday and Sunday, 2/3 of the students that would be living on campus have moved in. The university partnered with Phelps Health to conduct appropriate screening, and there'll be subsequent screening here in the ensuing days. The initial screening indicated that nobody has appeared sick. The university has put a lot of time and effort into their plan, if you will. So this is on their website. It's worth downloading and reading. They did a yeoman's job on being prepared, on how to prepare these students, and getting commitments from the students as well regarding their health. Second of all, local situation. As of today, our positive cases in Phelps County are climbing, and they're climbing very fast. As of today, there's 143 cumulative positive cases. That's up 20 in just 3 or 4 days. Of that 143, there is approximately 33 active cases. The other thing that's jumped up is the hospitalization. We went months and months and months with few cases and no hospitalization. As we sit today, we have 5 hospitalization, and our understanding is these people are sick. There's another statistic that is used nationwide and locally as well, and that's the positive test rate. So the benchmark is 10%. So the number of positives divided by the number of total tests yields a number. The August average for Phelps County is 9.47%. The average for the last week is 10.75. The national benchmark is once you exceed 10%, that is considered entering a rapid community transmission rate. So the numbers are climbing, and the numbers are climbing fast. We've not yet seen the impact of MS&T. We've not yet seen the impact of Rolla Public Schools, and we've not seen the impact yet of the Phelps County Fair, amongst other things. The other thing, there was a question that as far as test results, most test results are available in 2 or 3 days, but if the physician is using in one of the outside labs, those test results could take as much as 10 days to come back. That's a synopsis of where we are locally. The health department. The health department, as these cases go up, is being challenged, and they're being challenged because of contact tracing. So when somebody tests positive, Phelps Health Department is notified, and then they start to make calls as part of the contact tracing process. The idea with that is to limit the transmission, limit the exposure, and proactively put people into potentially quarantine situations. So if I tested positive tomorrow, I'm going to be asked, who did you interact with in the last couple of days or since I've had the symptoms, and where did I go? And they could reach out and notify those people to put it on their radar, if you will, that, hey, you've been associated with somebody that has a positive test. With the health department, and it's not just our health department, but it's others as well, they're finding that people are either reluctant to share that information, or they're actually flat out lying, and that's not good for anybody. So if we don't all work together on this, these results are going to get worse, and that's not good. People will get sick, people will be talking about restrictions again, businesses won't have customers, businesses won't have employees. So we have personal rights, but we have personal responsibilities as well. So on behalf of the Phelps County Health Department, those that are testing positive, please participate in that contact tracing. They're trying to do their job and they're trying to protect us. So that's the COVID update. Before I ask any other council persons if you have issues, are there any questions with regard to COVID? Rachel.
More of a comment than a question. Just as someone who has a lot of involvement with students at the university, I just want to speak also as a city council member that I want to encourage students to remember they need to follow the guidelines both on and off campus, including off-campus parties. You know, it's important that people follow these. There's already been some concerns about that. We want to make sure that we keep this area safe.
Thank you. Dan.
Just going off what Rachel said, I was an S&T student. I graduated from there. Please, as a STEM school, the first letter that stands for science. Listen to science. Sometimes we're talking about both sides. No, there's no both sides here. Wear your mask. Listen to scientists and doctors who have spent their life's work studying diseases and viruses. Listen to the experts at S&T. Please, do what you need to do as young people to make all of us stay safe in our community, and do realize that just because you're young doesn't mean you won't get it.
Any other city council comments?
Mayor, I'm sorry. This is a reminder on that COVID, our current ordinance expires September 9th. So we need to give some thought as to what does that look like after September 9th.
Thank you for that. David?
I just want to thank the mayor and obviously all the coordination that's been going on with Phelps Health and Phelps County Health Department. And obviously, this is kind of the trigger point we were all talking about for the since the shutdown thing. We've got all these people coming back to school. I think S&T set up a plan, RPS has set up a plan. I just wanted to mention that it does seem like S&T has a mask wearing thing going on. I'm not sure that RPS does.
Required on campus, yes.
Okay. Main thing I just wanted to ask put it out there potentially to the mayor or anybody else, is there, like you said, we're at that 10% rate. We're at the spot where we knew it's going to get a lot more people in town, a lot more things happening with the schools, RPS opening up. I think for all the parties that go on to S&T, young kids, maybe if they're not wearing masks and they're touching each other, first grade, touching the same things, not as much maybe for just them as children, but obviously they interact with their grandparents and they have a lot of functions outside with the community. And so my question is just, we got the 10%. What are we looking for? What are kind of the points where we decide something greater than what we've done, I guess?
Well, that's a good question. Early on, we talked about some benchmarks, which proved to be a little bit elusive to find. I have not verified this, but somebody this afternoon told me that the city of Columbia is using that particular benchmark to make changes. So either the city of Columbia or the Columbia school system. I heard both versions of it, so we'll research that tomorrow. But it appears to be at least somebody else out there that's using that as their benchmark.
Right. I mean, the main thing I want to mention is just obviously you can kind of be proactive or reactive. I think we've done a pretty good job of being proactive based on trying to weigh, like you said, personal freedom versus personal responsibility for the whole community. And so if we have to be reactive on this in the future and we start having tons of cases, it's going to be harder to catch up. So I just want to put it out there for whatever that good that is.
Yep. Thank you. Any other council persons comment?
Yes, I have one.
Go ahead, Ann.
Also, the seasonal flu shots are going to become available pretty soon, and it's advised that everyone get a flu shot. The compound problems with seasonal flu and COVID could wield some terrible results.
Thank you. Christine or Lister? Okay. Next section, citizen communication. Let's start. Is Herman here? Oh, okay. Herman, you're on the schedule, so You go first.
Last time I was here, after I left, I had forgotten that I actually went to school with someone that spent the better part of his career as a prosecutor in San Francisco. So I contacted him just to ask him about the sanctuary concept and whether he got blowback and what that happened politically. And as it turns out, that's probably not a good model because the sanctuary cities were created pursuant to a federal statute to create a zone to give asylum for refugees from someone else, and part of that asylum was that you weren't to give out addresses and locations, and when other agencies, including law enforcement, wanted to know where they were at, you couldn't tell them. But that was created pursuant to a federal statute, and there is no such correlation of federal statute when we're talking about the drug laws. So the authority to create that system elsewhere, it just doesn't translate to this. But in the process, there was something that they called a deprioritization ordinance that was enacted in California, in Seattle, in Montana, even in places, and it seems like it was enacted on the road towards legalization. So when marijuana was legalized, then it becomes a nullity, and as a result, there's probably not a lot of court research you can do because it just didn't last that long. This is a copy of one such ordinance from Seattle, but there's a couple of key parts. One part is that it's just a statement that you as city council can set policy that you don't think that marijuana enforcement should be the priority for your police. They should focus on other more serious matters. But there's no penalty if they do. It's not like you haul them in front of Jamie Crump and he sets a fine and an officer writes a marijuana ticket. It's just setting a policy. So it doesn't impact the comment the mayor had, which was stepping on their oath. You're not stepping on anybody's oath because they can still do it. And which was a good comment, and I acknowledged that last time. I was actually wanted to look into that. What it is and then the subpart creates a committee. The committee receives data on when tickets are written, when arrests are made, and what the context of that is. And then this committee reports back to city council as to whether their policy is being carried out, and you can take that into account however you want to take that into account. You could take it into account at the budget meeting, whether your employees are following your policy. Now, the benefit to this law enforcement is where a sanctuary would say you can't write a ticket, this allows them to write a ticket. Suppose, for example, someone is stopped for DWI and they find not just alcohol but marijuana in the car. Well, naturally, you want that to be part of the charge. You know, they need to be able to write that ticket. They need to be able to pursue felony warrants, and if it's part of that, they can do it. They just have to report it to the committee after the fact, and then this committee reports to city council, whether or not, and as you can see in that particular ordinance, it just says, we think that enforcement of possession of marijuana, where that's all they're doing, should be the least of the priorities. It doesn't say don't do it. So, you know, you're not stepping on anybody's oath and you're not interfering with the charter where the city comes from the state that Mr. Thurman brought up. Another good point. In other words, there is no legal barrier to an ordinance like this. There may be political ones. You all can decide not to do it, but there's no legal barrier because it doesn't encroach upon the objections I heard last time, which were valid. The key to this committee is really diversity, you know, and in that ordinance they've got it codified. It's a bigger city. You don't have to do that. You can create it any way you want to. You could combine the seats. You could make the prosecutor, the law enforcement, one seat instead of two. You could shrink a defense attorney to one. You could put an activist. You could do it any way you want to. But the key to this committee is diversity because then people buy the results. If someone comes in and you don't have a representation of law enforcement on the committee, then the people that want to see enforcement of marijuana are going to reject the results. If it's all law enforcement, the people that want legalization are going to reject the results. And so the key is really not to just have token diversity, but actually embrace that concept and somehow appoint it. You can have council create the chair can appoint them, you can do it any way you want to. But you know, that's the key. I mean, I think understanding that right now the mayor makes appointments to boards generally, you can do that. You can have a council member be the chair and have the council member make appointments and advise the consent of city council. It doesn't matter. That's the key. The key is that you have a policy and then you have a board that takes information You could combine it with your I think you've got some existing boards for somebody to complain about misconduct or whatever. You just add that to the duty. But that's the example, that.
So Herman, in the essence of time, because
Sure.
you were on a good roll there, so I'll let you go a couple more minutes. Let me ask you a question, because I'm intrigued. Why do we need a committee? Because I see a committee for in this particular purpose is going to be a challenge. But to stay with your main theme, let's just assume that the council adopts the deprioritization. Why not just have once a year as part of normal reporting, or once every 6 months or whatever, law enforcement just provide the city council with that same report?
Well,
why go through a committee?
Why go through the committee, or why make it part of a different committee or any of that?
Yeah.
But it sells it to the public. I mean, if you've got a diverse board, people.
But the board is not able to do anything. So the board's going to sit there and...
gathers information, and they say, well, we wrote this, we arrested someone for marijuana, and what was going on? Well, it's part of the guy, okay, and then they report that context.
I see zero value in the committee. But again, stay with my point. What if it was, what if the law enforcement was right to the elected body? I mean, so this is the elected body, this is the group that makes the decisions, you, not me.
And the police chief or a higher ranking person up there and says, here was our last year, we wrote 35 tickets for marijuana.
Right.
I don't know, that might work. I just know that this is what's in those ordinances. It's perfectly valid for debate as whether you need that.
I'm not so sure I want to follow Seattle for a damn thing.
Well, I think that
they're right after, they're ahead of San Francisco in my book. But I think your point is intriguing, so I'm not.
And they're not the only ones. It's just that I'm not your city attorney. I'm not getting paid, and I didn't do the research of every single ordinance out there. I saw it on Google, which is available to everybody on there, and provided an example. That's why I didn't.
But I think what you're driving at is heightening the awareness of the community as to how many people are getting tickets, for lack of a better word.
Well, and the other value of the committee is, quite frankly, it insulates you one step from all of the drama.
Oh, quite contrary.
I mean, you
tell me how hard it is going to be to appoint a committee to do this. That's fair and balanced?
Yeah. And you know, I thought it might be a little harder to make those appointments in Raleigh. You've only got so many prosecutors and defense attorneys and therapists and other people willing to give their time. I mean, I don't know.
Again, I don't see the value of the committee.
But the concept of, let's extrapolate then a step further. The concept is set a policy of deprioritization and then have some sort of review process to ensure it's being done, whether or not it's committee-based.
I think that's why you have city administrators and things like that. But your point is good, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
I have a quick questions if I can. First one was, is it law enforcement officer specific, or is it for the whole department? Like, you look at, say, hey, this officer is constantly charging low-level things, or is it like the department itself?
Well, once again, that's up to you. I think, personally, I would be careful of trying to micromanage your department heads. I mean, I would just have the department report and leave it up to the chief how he wants to manage his people.
Okay.
But that's your call.
In the essence of time, the other thing I just wanted to bring up and just see if I'm on the right page of understanding myself. I recently, well, I was here recently, in the last year, maybe 2 years, I did a California stop, did not come to a full stop at a stop sign, was pulled aside by RPD. After talking with me, giving my license, whatever, I was issued a warning. Is that an example of where stopping at a stop sign is an infraction that should be written a ticket, and the officers were that day willing to deprioritize because
you should have taken the ticket. As a council person, you should have taken the ticket.
I should have. I would have. I'll give the $10 or whatever it is. I'm making a point of, that's an example of deprioritization.
In fairness, when we're talking about officers exercising discretion. In fairness.
Discretion.
There's a difference between an officer exercising discretion and city council ordering them to not write the ticket, which was what I was talking about last time. And I think there is a difference from that.
True. They already have the choice to like we talked before about, you took an oath. If somebody doesn't stop at a stop sign, you got to enforce it. That's what we made it sound like with cannabis. And all I just wanted to bring up was,
yes,
it seems like already, how many times has someone been speeding, going 20 over, and all of a sudden they get a ticket for 10 over? Well, the officer didn't enforce exactly what he was supposed to. Why? He used some discretion.
They do have discretion. They can exercise discretion. This sets up a review of that discretion and tries to make it consistent with city policy.
Right.
It's a way of going back to this debate of everybody's afraid that they'll file tickets in state court or want to file it in state court. This is a deprioritization ordinance that just says put your attention towards opioids.
But I was just going to say, the last thing I was going to add to it was we got opioids, we got fentanyl, we got heroin, we got child abuse, we got all this thing that could be spending our time. Like, why would we, and I'm just making this to council, why would we want to spend the time on cannabis? I mean, I'm more concerned about somebody getting in their car drunk after going to the bar than, you know what I mean, than possessing a little bit of cannabis. So just let's look at our priorities and see what's important, and I think that this idea is important to look at.
Okay, so in the essence of time, we do have it on the agenda for 2 weeks.
Thank you.
So Herman, thank you very much.
Yep, take care.
Any other citizen comments? Then I ask you to please state your name and address for the record, and 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Oh, I have to state it? Okay. Destiny Thompson? They told me no. Destiny Thompson. 2136 10 Brink Drive. 36. Yeah. All right. So my name is Destiny, as you all just heard. And I am the secretary of ROCAN, not Pecan. And just give me 1 minute to get this put up here.
Yeah, we got it.
There we go. Okay, there's going to be a blank slide because I actually had one just now. Okay, so you guys know what we do. We're all can we have been cleaning up the community. And we put together a presentation for you guys just for the sake of information, just to kind of inform you guys on what we're finding, what we're doing, what our plans are. So our cleanup at Frisco Express train was about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. I could be off on the time frame, but I believe that this was referred to us by Ann Murphy. Here you see a picture of a needle. We found this about 3 feet from the ball field while an active game was going on. I believe this is a radiator. Don't quote me on that. I don't know cars. We found that near the train tracks. And then this is a picture of Shirley, our CEO, taking our Sharps bucket to the Rolla Police Department because that's where we have to dispose of any needles that we find. This is a spoon that was found next to the needle, once again 3 feet from the ballpark. And you know, when we do these things, we like to take a picture of all of the garbage that we collect just to show you guys what we found, once again for informational purposes. And I like to add that, I mean, if an animal would have found that needle, that animal would have died. You know, it was like 2 feet from the pond out there. And even though an animal might not eat a needle, they're definitely going to eat a dope baggie or an alcohol prep pad, which I have pictures of those too. This is Shirley with some gentlemen that we met at the park. They were really nice. You know, we wanted to add the pictures of them. We brought them some
Destiny,
pizza.
1 minute. 1 minute.
Okay, we brought them some pizza and some drinks. We also found a guitar case, and we delivered it to the Rolla Police Department. Met us in the park and collected that from us. It actually belonged to somebody that one of our friends knew. And this is a picture that was sent to me by a woman that I met at the Frisco cleanup. And she found that package of cigarettes with the 2 needles in it, I think 3 days before we got there. And it was in the park, just right on that tire clipping. I mean, super safe. Next we have Olive and 18th Street, and if my time runs out, somebody else is coming up. Here we have some alcohol bottles that go on a needle that would be used to inject heroin or meth. And here we have some glass and the various amounts of garbage that we collected from there as well. Here you have the garbage back up behind some bushes, the inside of someone's garbage bag, and somebody picking, I believe that's Shirley picking up cigarette butts. And then the next one is going to be covered by Tristan. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have it all wrote down so it's easier for me than trying to hear it. You're welcome. Hi guys, I'm Tristan. I am the CFO of Rolla Cannabis Action Network. Just kind of highlighting on everything. That last cleanup that she was speaking about was actually, we were asked to come there by a citizen because that was her apartment complex that she had found all that garbage at. But Bueller Park, I just want to say thank you to Anne Marie for suggesting this, and thank you to all the council members that have been part of this cleanup. We really, really appreciate your participation. This one was yesterday. We went to Bueller Park. Here's some of the trash that we found. There was a lot of like cigarette butts. We found alcohol containers with actual alcohol in them. We found tons of broken bottles, cut up plastic, looked like it had been just mowed over and just kind of gone all over the place. We also found some drug baggies, some alcohol pads, and a half of a syringe that we feel like obviously were apparent drug use. And then the pavilion, actually, this is some before pictures of what the pavilion looked like whenever we got there. It had a lot of trash, cigarette butts, food trash, fast food trash. This is what it looked like afterwards. And then we found 2 dogs that were locked in the dog park that had been completely locked in there. Nobody was looking after them. They were needing water. And so we ended up, Shirley ended up being able to take them home, and we're holding them for the moment since the animal control is not able to do their work right now with COVID. Hopefully their owners will show up, or we'll be able to have them a new home. And so our next few cleanups are going to be Bear Lawn Park and Lions Club Park that have been suggested by council members. And yet again, this is another open invitation. We'll send out some emails asking you guys if you would like to pick, for anybody that hasn't picked, to pick an area in your boards that we can come help clean up, because we care about this community. Even besides just cannabis, we care about this community and its members. So, yeah, David.
Good question. Notice you found a ton of cigarette butts. I've been to some of these, so I've seen the amount. Bueller Park was full of cigarette butts. Alcohol, heroin-related things. How many cannabis-related items have you found that people are trashing behind cannabis users, for example?
None.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And this slide is going to be for Miss Shirley. So, thank you, guys.
I'm just gonna set my timer on my $20 phone here. I would
Can you
like
please
you all,
state your name and address for the record?
My name's Shirley Martin. She has my address, thanks. I would like you all to take a moment to let these pictures right here just lock into your memory bank. I would also like to encourage you all to remember them when you hear the word cannabis. Remember that you can choose to allow this plant to elevate this community with acceptance and reasonable practices, or you can destroy it by keeping it in the same circles as the items pictured right here in front of you on this slide. As this week progressed, we were contacted on 2 separate occasions for assistance due to misinformation concerning law enforcement education on medical marijuana laws. This occurred in 2 separate counties outside of Rolla. It is time for Missouri to protect its patient population, and it is time for Rolla to show up and show them the way. One does have to question why the promotion of alcohol is so widely accepted and promoted by our own chamber, while we still prosecute people willingly for possession of a plant. As a footnote, council person, I know that you cannot discuss your current citation. However, I would like to extend an apology to you for the harassment over a plant. If you have any questions, that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Any other citizen comments?
Yes, we have one.
Oh, you can go, Thomas. Go for it.
Thomas Nichols, constituent of Ward 1, 1400 block of Ozarks Street. I'm here today because, first off, found out that you guys are doing another thing with this whole, the right way and the wrong way with legalization, and not so necessarily decriminalization, but deprioritization. We've heard a lot of people say that money and resources can be directed at solving an issue rather than going ahead and beefing up the prison industrial complex. Right now, 300,000 Americans are incarcerated for low-level drug offenses, mostly marijuana. I don't think that's right. Personally, I'd like to see our tax dollars go towards the schools, go towards getting people off of addictive drugs. I've told this council before, I've been addicted to drugs. something that I've never told anybody other than my wife. I've actually been homeless. I've been homeless before the military. I joined the military because I felt like, hey, maybe living on the street isn't such a great place. I got out of the military with more problems than I went in with. Sometimes I'd rather be homeless than have the thoughts that go through my mind. I was helped by a plant. I know that some people here do believe that some people are just trying to get high. Well, some people are going out, they're drinking, they're just trying to get high, because that's what alcohol is. People are smoking cigarettes, they're just trying to get high. People are drinking caffeine, they're just trying to get high. They're just trying to feel a little bit better. You wake up in the morning, you feel like crap. You don't want to go on. You try to grab that cup of coffee, you drag a cigarette, well, I do at least. But I know many people here, maybe some tea, some coffee. That gets you to your noon coffee or tea, you know? I think that this council is going in the right direction. I'm glad to see that we are making the right steps to go ahead and say we're not going to put people in prison for this. This is silly. Now I'd like to see the next step. I would like to see for this council to go ahead and deprioritize this. Take that money, take it and shoot. Give it to our officer over here, give him some more narcotics officers to go after the bad drugs that are killing people. I mean...
Sir, your time is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing what you did. It's hard to talk about being homeless.
Thank you.
Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, my name, absolutely. My name's Samara Weber. Sorry. I am the Director of Best Practices for Rolla Cannabis Action Network.
Your address, Marla, please? Is it Marla or Mara?
Samara.
I gave my address to her.
For the record, please publicly state it, or else I'll ask Carol to give it.
I will pause my time, 10485, County Road 3110, Townhouse C.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so to start with, Dan, I want to thank you for sharing your homeless experience, and as an May 2020 S&T graduate who put myself through school supporting my disabled veteran fiance as well as my 2 children, and who came from a life of homelessness with growing up to a single mom with 5 kids. Thank you for sharing that. That really touched me, and there are a lot of people that have gone through that kind of thing. I want to let you guys know with the total fine cost, it is actually $222.50. When you're saying $100, you're not saying $100. You're saying $222.50 with fine court costs. Additionally, though, I want to give you guys an option where you don't even have to consider a fine. You don't have to consider messing with the fine bureau. That's going to be a mess, by the way. You don't have to consider anything like that. Rohan will provide the cards for any patients that are in need. If they get in trouble, like I said, you guys would refer things to Rohan, a non-for-profit organization. We would ask nothing, no cost to us. You don't have to figure out where the fines go. We would work to get that person carded. I know that you think it's just as simple as, oh, the world's been there for 2 years and no one's getting carded. No, actually, the law was passed in November 2018. However, you couldn't first obtain a card until July 4th, 2019. That's just a little over a year. At that time, cards were taking even months to issue. So a lot of people weren't getting on board. They didn't even have the money to go towards it. But that's just the thing. They're not, Lou, they're not just running around trying to break the, just until the law comes after them. They're saying, oh, it's a priority. They literally don't have the money. They don't. I'm in a position where I struggle to have enough money for my medicine, for registration, and I make above minimum wage. There's people that make minimum wage. They don't have the money. It's not a person choosing not to get it. I promise you that. We have a class that has been declared protected by the state, the class of medical marijuana patients. However, that protection has a cost. And as far as I know, in this country, if you're afforded a protection, It's not supposed to be on the basis of your ability to pay. You're supposed to be afforded that protection. Let us make sure that every patient is getting protected. Let us make sure that we've gone through and seen, okay, this person, they need a caregiver. Maybe they are younger, but they have a qualifying condition and they need a caregiver. We're saying we'll figure that out for you. Okay, if they're a patient, we're going to figure it out and we're going to get them protected and the problem's off your hands. I promise you, I understand to a degree it's hard to see our side because you've not been in our shoes, and I get that. But please know, I've been on both sides of it. I've recovered from opiate addiction, and I almost lost my life to going back to relapsing until I found this natural medication. And I'm just asking you to please give everyone a chance to get that medication. And we're not even asking you to do anything to ensure that. We're saying, well, Ken will do it, and I've got a surprise for you guys, actually. We have a doctor that has agreed to give out these certifications as long as Rocan is referring those people. So with this whole process, we've already got the cost figured out and everything to get people carded. Okay, so when I believe it was one of the council members on there had said, look, it's already been 2 years. If they haven't gotten it by now, what's going to change now? Rocan is here, and we're going to change it. So just give us that opportunity, please. Thank you so much, and thank you, look, for letting me go from my... Yes.
What's stopping Rocan from doing that now? Why do you need city council?
We have already...
I know, but why do you guys keep coming and telling us this, and you want us to do what?
We don't know who...
criminalizing us.
Yes,
Stop
we...
writing the tickets. Just send them straight to us.
We don't know...
We're here for you, John Yush.
Well, thank you, Daniel.
It's really easy.
Okay, so hold on.
That's not my job as city council.
Please address your questions. We don't need a back and forth from the audience.
Okay, so all we're saying is that we don't know who those patients are until this thing happens in some cases. Prior to February 22nd, was illegal to take my medicine. So I would have been fined, a hardworking mom would have been fined, a straight A student at that. By the way, my degree is in business through S&T with majors in entrepreneurship as well as management and information science and technology. And so what I'm saying is the person that is viewed as a criminal one day, that next day is actually a patient. And right now, those lines are too foggy for us to tell. You can't, unfortunately, it's not just that looking at him and saying, this is a patient, this isn't. I wish it was, but it's not. You probably wouldn't look at me and say, I'm a patient, but I'm a medical marijuana patient. And you can tell when I don't have my medicine, okay? And get on the alcohol thing, as a survivor of domestic abuse, severe domestic abuse by an alcoholic, I want to see alcohol gone, and I want to see marijuana here. Sorry, does that answer your question?
Straight. You're right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Mayor, I wanted to follow up with Mr. Mush's comment. I know this body taking action could address some of your concerns. It also seems like the prosecutor has discretion, and what you've suggested could actually probably be done in a lot of respects through the prosecuting attorney's office.
Agreed, yep.
So I just want to make sure that that avenue is being addressed, because that's something that could be done immediately. For the, this may be a little bit old, it looks like there's been 6 cases since June 30th. Have you addressed any of those with the prosecutor?
It's funny you asked that, and just thank you so much. This lets me know you're putting your heart into things, by the way. Actually, that is the next avenue we're exploring. My wishes, and I can't say that she will grant this, but my wishes is to at least go speak with the assistant prosecutor.
I'm talking about Mr. Neckerman.
Oh,
but
the city?
But obviously the
We want to
state
address
too.
city and state. Yeah, Mr. Neckerman, actually, yeah, that is on the table. I would like to talk with all the prosecutors, because honestly, that's where you typically see the DPA come in to play, is when the prosecutor says, okay, you know what? I recognize there's more to this, and so if you go do this, we won't prosecute. So you're right, and that was why last time I said, what would be the possibility of doing it at this level? But as I've watched tonight, I'm like, you know what? Let's go directly to them. Because honestly, I feel like there is very much unity among the mindset with this, even with the prosecutors, and that prosecutors no more want to see patients prosecuted. than anything else. I think that's what, it doesn't seem like there's much disagreement that anyone's saying a patient should be thrown in jail or fined. That is supposed to be for sure, you know, like, okay, they're patients. We're just saying, how do you identify them? And so I think if maybe a way was presented for us to truly identify them, I don't see why the prosecutor wouldn't be on board, but I can't speak for Mr. Neckerman or Mr. Fox or Ms. Brashears. But I would really hope that they would give some thoughtful consideration to it, yes.
You know, one of the advantages of the prosecutor, you know, a lot of what we're trying to do here is a one-size-fits-all. And what fits for somebody who needs medical marijuana doesn't fit for the person that just has a substance abuse problem. So the advantage that the prosecutor has is the facts relative to that particular case.
Absolutely.
And that's the challenge that I think when you try to monkey with the ordinance, you're losing.
And I can see that, and I think that sometimes we're kind of combining lines. It seems like we're combining the group of people that marijuana is just one of the many tickets they're getting, along with all these other criminal matters, and then you just have like the marijuana tickets. Obviously, there's all sorts of factors that work in chronic offender, habitual, all that stuff. We're not asking you, to like toss aside basic logic when it comes to the law. But I think that even if you run into a case of habitual offender, if it's just marijuana, how do you know that it was not a patient habitually getting their medicine taken from them? They just couldn't afford the card, and they just kept getting hit with that fine because if the option is something legal or jail time, you're going to come up with that money. But sometimes when the option is feed your children or get the card for yourself, you put feeding your children before carding yourself up.
Yes, David.
I just have a 30-second thing real quick, just to tie it all together.
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding, it does sound like we talked about maybe, like the mayor had said, trying to work with the finite details of this to say, how is the prosecutor going to have to do this? Sounds like maybe what you're saying is we don't need to do that. What we need is this nonprofit discussing the possibility of getting people their cards, and then the prosecutor making an informed decision based on the facts. I think that makes sense.
Yes.
The thing that we could look at, if I'm tying it all together, leave that avenue for ROCAN and the prosecutor. The avenue we could talk more about is the deprioritization, in the sense that maybe there's some instances, a lot of instances, where these people don't even need to be sent to the prosecutor. So that's where we could address, and it sounds like you could address that. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And see, here's where I'm notioning it doesn't even have to go to the prosecutor to take it.
Right.
Like you literally,
Right.
Chief Fagan or Rick Lisenby's office, Phelps County or Rolla, they would just send the information over to us. Like
Sure.
literally it sits on.
I guess the deprioritization wouldn't even do that.
I don't.
We don't send anything to county, just to be,
Right.
nothing out of the city. Nothing out of the city goes to county.
No, I'm saying relevant to this situation. You have some people that are going to get pulled over by RPD. I live outside of city limits, so I got pulled over, it would be by a deputy. So I was saying, based on whatever agency is citing.
In the essence of time, since again, since this is an agenda item coming down the path, let's keep it moving, because this council has another couple of issues they have to get to.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing all that information. That was very helpful.
Absolutely.
Any other citizen communications?
Hi, folks. Thank you, council. My name is Daniel Jones. I live at 710 East 7th Street. In Missouri, we have one of the most comprehensive cannabis programs in the United States. One of those qualifying conditions is addiction to opioids. So when you have those discussions, it's okay to have them in the same language, because we are here for you, all the opioid addicts out there. If we can step in and help, we will. But here's the reality. Marijuana is not a gateway drug. It is an exit drug. I hope you guys start embracing that, because I'm tired of coming up here and telling you guys that.
Daniel,
that's all I got for you.
With all due respect,
Stand down.
for every person, what did you say?
I said stand down, Mayor.
One more, and you could be shown the door. Megan, would you like to speak to City Council?
Megan Johnson, 1601 Broadway. I just wanted to know, what are we doing, and this is probably a question for the chief, what are we doing about these needles that are being found?
Can you speak up?
What are we doing about the needles that are being found? Like, do we have something going on to try to, clean up the parks, other than just, the fact, because that's pretty scary. I'm a mom of 4.
It's very scary.
And just while sitting here, I had several people message me and say, I'm getting really scared about going to the park now with my kids.
Because some little kid could pick these things up.
Right.
So, John, I don't think Floyd is here, but so at least relative to the parks, does the park staff keep an eye open for these things, or what? It's a really good point.
Yeah, I mean, they do find them, they report them to the police department, they'll pick them up sometimes, but you're not going to get ahead of it. I mean, it takes lots of eyes to be out there in the park system, and we don't have an issue or an answer as to what we're going to do about the propensity of drug use that's out there.
Okay. I didn't know if the chief, if they have something set up where they're, trying to control that.
They do, they'll turn them over to the police department on the locations, but that's still not going to allow them to
I don't
get
think we
ahead
have the
of things.
resources to have the...
Officers have a sharps container in front of his car. Do we go out and actively look for them? We don't have the time.
No, we
Right, I
can't
get
do that.
Call us, we will go out and take them. We have a container in the back, in the trunks of our car to put.
They also empty our sharps containers, so I want to just make that clear, they have been very good about if we find something.
Right, yeah.
I was just going to say, I've been at a few Rolla can events, and I think that obviously almost everyone, there's been numerous needles and stuff found. So my question is almost like, would it be smart to at least mark on the map where these were found? It would give, and not that I want, think that policing people who have a drug issue is the answer either. It's a actual addiction problem that needs treatment. So, but could we use that as some sort of map? Like there do seem to be a number of users at these locations. Maybe there's an intervention. I don't know if that's a police intervention or that's like a treatment intervention through the CIT, for example. At least we have, they're collecting data, because I'm telling you, when I'm out there, I see, okay, that's where they found that one, and that's where they found, they could make a map. It looks like they're going to be hitting every park within the next few months, so I'm just like, this could be a real help, and I guess my thing is, even just having a map of locations could help our police chief, our whole community, our CIT, help identify where some people are that are having these issues and maybe get them treatment. Just an idea.
Definitely scary.
Well, and to your point, Megan, about asking what is being done investigation-wise? What is being done? Are we following up with this? Are we making sure, is there any screening going on? Is there testing going on? Are we seeing what kind of drug came from the needle? What are we doing? Are we doing anything to prevent this? What is happening at the legal level? What's happening? I know that you don't have that answer, Megan.
Yeah.
Any other citizens would like to speak to City Council?
That was a genuine question. What is legally being done? I think, Megan, I don't know if you were meaning that.
I don't think we're testing syringes or anything like that. I think they're being disposed of.
If there's nobody attached to that syringe, or, I don't mean attached, excuse me.
I know what
If
you
there's
mean.
nobody holding it or it's not on somebody, there's no way to determine who possessed it and therefore what the crime is. And so, I'm just simply presuming that to test it could be, getting those things tested is expensive, and you got to send them up to the state to get tested. And so if you can't do anything with that information, I'm not sure that it's considered, fiscally responsible to send things to be tested when you can't do anything with that information. I don't know. That's just as a former prosecutor, that's why we wouldn't test just stuff that we found. It's typically, what do you do with it if somebody's found with it?
Any other citizen communications?
5 seconds for the needle thing. Most cities usually end up having to do what's called a needle exchange. It's a one-for-one item. A lot of people like to think that it fixes the problem with heroin or meth. It doesn't. It just gives them a reason, first off, to go put that needle somewhere instead of on the ground. And then the second thing would be to get them a new needle that's not going to be dirty or maybe has been used multiple times. It's not going to be something that ends the problem. It's going to be something that ends the problem, or at least minimizes the problem of our kids fighting needles.
Okay, thank you. Very good point. There's kids in those playgrounds, and that's something we need to follow up on. Any other citizens? If not, moving on to comments for the good of the order. If not, we have one item scheduled in closed session. It has to do with real estate. Is there a motion to go in?
I got one quick one.
So moved.
Hold on.
I didn't realize that we already had council comments, but,
Second.
while Floyd's still here. Can I put that on the overhead? Does that work? While I was at Bueller Park, I happened to notice, is that working? You can't get it on the overhead. I don't know if I could pass it around. Floyd, would you be able to step up and take a look at it? And then we can pass it around to council. It's the sign, brand new sign, Bueller Park. I don't know if we had an earthquake over there or what, but I just check it in because I don't know how the work was done or whatever. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Not trying to make a big issue, but I'm just curious if we're going to be doing that with a bunch of signs. Maybe we could pass it around to council too. Do we have a concern with that happening within a year or whatever is going on?
You're going to talk about the crack?
Yes.
Generally, no. That's something that we'll talk to Jim DePardo, who's been working on with the quarry and the signs for us. So
Sure.
this is the first. We had ones that have about been longer, like Larry May Park was the first one we did, and have not any issues there.
Sure.
So we'll just.
That one looks pretty new though, so I was concerned about what it's doing.
It does. We have had some issues with vandalism and some painting on the signs. And we've actually had stones stolen just this last couple of weeks over at the park off Winchester. So it's a problem. I don't know that that was this, but nonetheless, we'll follow up on it.
Just want to make sure it doesn't happen with every one of our signs.
Yeah.
Seems like one year it's like all cracked apart. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
What's that?
Do you want me to answer anything on the earlier?
No.
Okay.
That's 10 o'clock and we have real estate issues. Okay, is there a motion to go into closed session to talk about real estate?
Make a motion.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Schneider,
Yes.
Lawrence,
Yay.
is that a yes? Reuter,
Yes.
Bolin,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Schott,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Bush. He's gone. Gone again. Allen,
Yes.
Eberly,
Yes.
Lyons,
Yes.
the nays.
What's that? Yeah, the next 2 months. 5%.